everybody. We're all going to get late.
Kick is up, and it is long enough, and it is good. Adam Vinatieri, at age 45, drills one from 57 yards out.
Was kept alive by Oladipo, and Sabonis with a left hand.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV, FM 107.5 and 1070 The Fan.
That Bill Walton intro gets me every time. What dreams came true in Indianapolis for Bill? Is that just Bill being Bill? Kevin Bowen filling in for JMV today. I got 6 hours of sleep last night, and with a newborn, that feels like I really have slept for the last 48 hours. So a little energy, little pep in the step for Kevin Bowen as he slides in studio. John will be back tomorrow. He will be a little backyard barbecue, I believe, tomorrow for John up on the northeast side in McCordsville. So JMV attending to his mother today down in southern Indiana, but he'll be back with the usual Friday lineup tomorrow afternoon. We've got a packed show today. Kyle Nenrip from the Star will join us here at the bottom of the hour. And Jay Michael, we'll talk a little Pacers. Obviously, we saw the Malcolm Brogdon news yesterday, him testing positive for COVID-19. Jay Michael's latest, I believe there are a few coaches that are in quarantine for the Pacers. You know, that's some of the dominoes that you're going to see here over the next few weeks with the NBA. Obviously, Major League Baseball will probably run into the same thing of when players do test positive, the whole contact tracing element to this is going to take some coaches or, you know, who knows, training staff, because Brogdon was rehabbing, of course, from that quad injury here in Indianapolis for about the past few weeks. So that's something I want to touch with Jay on. We'll have Chappie on, typical 5 o'clock segment every Thursday with Chap. Obviously, the big-ish Colts news of the day, NFL news maybe more likely, is the Hall of Fame game, preseason game canceled. If I were a player playing in the Hall of Fame game, I would be thrilled that game was canceled and that I don't have to go to Canton, Ohio in early August, and I don't have to report to training camp 5 days early. I'll never forget being in Canton a few years ago when, what was it? The field was too sticky. Is that what it was? It was like some dried paint or something. You know, they couldn't get the logo figured out, and Packers Colts got canceled. Back when Tony Dungy and Marvin Harrison went into the Hall of Fame 3 or 4 years ago. So we'll have Chap on to talk a little bit about that. Obviously, what that means for the Colts, nothing really to do with the 2020 team, but no Edgerrin James being inducted into Canton this season. He will go in next year alongside Peyton Manning. Obviously, Peyton will be a first balloter next year. I know some people out there floating around Reggie Wayne. I mean, to me, it's like if Marvin Harrison had to wait 3 years, Reggie Wayne's going to have to wait a little bit. I know the Hall of Fame's kind of a tricky thing, but I can't see Reggie going in automatically, especially because next year, not only do you have Peyton going in, I want to say Charles Woodson, somebody else. Maybe Champ Bailey, is it? Somebody else, I think another kind of first ballot type of guy is eligible next year in 2021. Nonetheless, you do feel like Wayne, given his, who is it?
Calvin Johnson.
Yeah, Calvin Johnson. That's a tough one. That's the one where, you know, over a 8-year career, he was incredible. But where does the longevity aspect of a Hall of Famer come into play? So we'll talk a little bit of that with Chap in the 5 o'clock hour. As always, whenever I'm in studio, you know, Colts questions, throw them at me. Phone lines will be open, 317-239-1070. Twitter is probably the easiest for me, KBowen1070. So if you want to chat any Colts, Pacers as well, we'll focus on that stuff. And then Lindsey Jones is going to join us from The Athletic at 5:30. For those of you that subscribe to The Athletic, I guarantee you, if you haven't already, you need to read it. She combined with a couple of other writers on one of those oral histories about Peyton Manning's 2012 free agency. And first off, the fact that she got Peyton on the record and talked as much as he did was shocking to me, and really got all the voices you needed. I mean, you had Jim Harbaugh in there, you had John Elway in there. Who else was involved? Tennessee was involved. Miami was involved. Arizona. Frank Reich was on that Arizona staff. That was something that I kind of forgot about until I read that article. So we'll have Lindsey on at 5:30 to talk that. from a news standpoint, I think probably the best news of the day here locally is what's happening down in Louisville. Churchill Downs announcing that the Kentucky Derby will have fans. Now, the amount remains to be seen, but how is that not good news for the Indy 500? I know it's different venues, different race, obviously, all of those things, but I think that bodes well and has to make Doug Bowles, Mark Miles, Roger Penske, those guys feel pretty good about their plan for August 24th, 23rd, whatever that Saturday or that Sunday is, I should say. I mean, that's 2 weeks before the Derby. Derby's supposed to be Labor Day Saturday. And I found what was also interesting about Churchill Downs announcing that today was they also said that some general admission tickets will be available. I mean, doesn't that mean infield? I always figured if you're going to run the 500, there's no way you would have infield tickets available. I mean, policing the infield in a normal year is, it's kind of a funny statement to even think about. So yeah, I think Derby-wise, if they're going to have some people in the infield, that might be a high bar, but I stand by what I said yesterday with John. I just feel like from an Indianapolis Motor Speedway standpoint, find me a better socially distant venue in the world. Now, 300,000? No. But I just feel like there is a great opportunity to be able to properly do it in late August. I know that trends aren't great right now around the U.S. Indiana doesn't seem to be kind of in that boat as much as some of these other states. So we'll see. You would think an announcement on that would have to come pretty soon, but I feel like there's some positive momentum with that. I know there's some like negative momentum right now with the NBA and even the PGA Tour and things like that, but the fact that Iowa, the race in mid-July, they're going to have some fans there for IndyCar, and then the announcement today about Churchill Downs and the Derby, I feel like that's good news. To me, that's something that that is positive, and we'll see how it goes. Shout out to my wife, Maddie. We had Rosie born, our daughter born 2 weeks ago. She'll be 2 weeks tomorrow. Thank you to Emmis. Emmis sent me some beautiful flowers today from the Indy radio team. So it was nice, Kyle, to come on air and not have to listen to any baby soundtracks. So thank you. Thank you for that. I get exposed like none other every Wednesday at 5. I mean, you probably get exposed every day in some capacity with the lack of music genres that John wants you to know and can't believe that you don't know. And I just have to feel the brunt of it every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, and I've felt it certainly for the last few weeks. But no, baby Rosie is doing great. She's growing well. Had her 2-week checkup today, and mom's healthy and was an absolute rock star throughout the process. So it's been a few sleepless nights. Although this week I feel like, knock on whatever wood is in this studio, she's been a decent sleeper. So, like I said, I feel like I got a little bit extra pep in the step here on this Thursday afternoon. Colts-wise today, things that I did want to hit on a little bit later in the show, and this will probably be during the 4 o'clock hour. We probably haven't talked about this guy really that much this offseason because there's been so many other things Colts-related that have been stealing the headlines, but, I mean, what a critical year it is for T.Y. Hilton. He turns 30 years old, the first time he's played in a contract year coming up this season, and this isn't totally on him, and I think people that have listened to me before know full well I'm a huge Hilton fan. I don't think he gets enough credit for the type of career that he's had and really how healthy he had been through the first kind of 6-ish years of his career. But I think it's fair right now to hit the pause button a bit and say, all right, where is he at in his career? He's 30 years old. He's missed 25% of the games the last 2 years. Like, that's not a number you can just turn your head at for a wideout that's built like Hilton on the smaller side and has had, 8 missed games in the last couple of years. Like, what does that look like contract value? And then the other element of this, which we'll get into a little bit later, and I'll definitely ask Chappie about this, is it is the type of wideout we characterize T.Y. Hilton. I feel like there's been a debate, like, is he a true number one? Yes. In my opinion, he is a number one. I honestly think with Andrew Luck under center, he's a top 5, top 7 wideout in this league. But if you look at his numbers without Luck, oh man. And yeah, I mean, I know he's got, me and Kyle throwing him the ball for some of those games, but still, I mean, he's been nowhere near the type of perennial 1,000-yard Pro Bowl wideout that he's been with Luck. So I think these are just the honest conversations that you have to have of he's still the alpha of your passing offense, and you don't want to put too much pressure on Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell early on. But he wants one more contract. He wants a multiple-year deal. Where does he kind of fit on the value scale? I think will be an interesting storyline to watch this season. Again, it's KBO and 1070 on Twitter. If you want to join us there, we'll have Kyle Nenrip at 3:30. And then Jay Michael will join us at 4. And kind of the Pacers stuff that I want to focus on today is more so, I guess I'm really excited about watching this team finish out the regular season and get in the playoffs because I feel like we were robbed a bit this season with the Pacers. And they were a fun team to watch. They obviously overachieved big time without Victor Oladipo for the large chunk of the season. But I still feel like we didn't get as fair of a sample size as we should have with that starting 5. Because, Kevin Pritchard and company last offseason, they were like, all right, we got to kind of blow it up a little bit, and we got to do some things differently. And they certainly did that. The trade for TJ Warren, signing Jeremy Lamb. Obviously, from a trade standpoint, the move to get Brogdon was pretty darn significant. And we just didn't get to see that starting 5 of Brogdon, Oladipo, Warren, Domantas Sabonis, and Miles Turner together for that long. We saw it a little bit in February, but even then, it was still, okay, Victor's on minutes restriction, Brogdon was a little bit banged up, and I just feel like we were robbed of it. And so selfishly, I want to see what that 5 looks like. Not only because I think we all can agree on that's obviously the best starting 5 for the Pacers, and we'll see what type of success that they're able to have here to close out the season, but that's also the starting 5 that you think about moving forward. I mean, they're all under contract for next season. If you extend Oladipo, which is another storyline to get into, if you extend him or try to, then all of a sudden, okay, is that your group for 2, 3, maybe even longer years down the road? Like, this is now the new core, and we just haven't seen it for as long of stretches that, selfishly, I would like to see it. So, I know it's going to be weird in Orlando. Who the hell knows if it's even going to, unfold how the NBA wants it to unfold, but still, selfishly, I just want to see that group together. Is Brogdon a all-star caliber point guard, and how does he play alongside Victor? Is Victor a top 20 player in this league? Can TJ Warren still be a consistent, efficient scorer when maybe he's not the number 1, 2, or 3 option like he was earlier in the season when some guys were in and out of the lineup? And then obviously the biggest storyline that I know John hits on a lot is, Turner and Domas. What does that duo look like when you have guards on the floor that want the ball a little bit more? There are some nice moments, certainly, from Domas and Miles playing together this season, but what does that look like when you've got a little bit more ball dominant in the backcourt? So that's what I want to see. And I just want to see basketball. I mean, I just want to see it. Baseball's pissed me off. I'm gonna try not to talk much baseball. Probably not much baseball. Probably not much Paul George today. Hopefully that doesn't piss any people off. But I mean, I might ask Jay Michael one thing about Paul George, but I'm just kind of done with it. I thought Paul was a really, really good player when he was here, and it seems like every time he opens his mouth now, it just makes me think less of him. So yeah, we're not going to hit on that very, very much today. You said maybe the schedule comes out today. Kristen Airy mentioned that with John yesterday. The final 8 games for the Pacers to close out the regular season, I believe it is, I've got it down here somewhere. Here it is. Philly, Miami, Phoenix, Orlando, Houston, Sacramento, and then you'd go back-to-back LA teams. Clippers, Lakers. And that's based off what their regular season schedule looked like if you would have taken the next 8 games of the 22 teams that are going down to Orlando for the finish of the season. So at least we'll get some times, dates. You guys talked about it yesterday. I mean, give me all the afternoon games you can. I mean, live sports in the afternoon. Being home with little Rosie Bowe. I've been watching PGA Tour live every morning. Oh my gosh, inject it into my veins. I just, my wife wants to watch the Today Show. No. I need Bryson, I need Rory, and I need Phil, and they just lit it up this morning. It was it was great theater. Great theater. One thing on the Pacers when we have J. Michael on that I want to touch on with him is he had in a story I think earlier in the week about how kind of winning and the goal of getting over this first round series hump for the Pacers has taken a backseat in Orlando. It's now all about health. And that sounds great, and it's a nice PR spin to it, but I'm sorry, I don't totally buy it. When you get into a playoff series and you win that playoff series, if you do, it'll be celebrated. Especially when you've lost, what? Is it 4 straight years the Pacers have bowed out in the first round? You swept a couple of those series as well last year. So I get it. There are a lot of hurdles to clear before we get to the postseason in the NBA. But once you get there and the 7-game series, tips off, I'm sorry. Winning is going to become top of mind. And, I mean, think about if you're Nate McMillan. Nate's coached in the league for what? Decade and a half? How many playoff series do you think Nate's won? How many playoff series? Seattle, Portland, Indy. I guess Seattle as a player. He's won one. One playoff series. You don't think it's going to mean something to him? I mean, it's. I know it's weird, and it's Orlando, and there might not be any fans in the stands and whatnot, but still, I mean, I think that gets thrown out the window a little bit when you do get to that point. And again, I know we've got a full month until the season starts, and there's obviously the Brogdon hurdle you've got to clear from a COVID standpoint. We'll ask J. Michael if he's hearing any rumors about anyone else potentially backing out. I know Justin Holiday what was a name. Obviously, Jeremy Lamb is still done for the season. That was a bad injury. Was it torn ACL? It was torn ACL and something else too with Lamb. And so yeah, he won't be ready for Orlando, obviously. But outside of him, I think it'll be a healthy bunch. So I think when the Pacers get down there, and John and I talked about it yesterday, I do feel like they're decently equipped to handle some of the unusualness, a ton of the unusualness, I guess, that's going around with this. So I do think that'll be a story. And trust me, I get it. The health factor of it is going to be priority number one for the NBA for so much of it. But when you get into the playoffs, and if you're able to have success in the playoffs, that stated goal is still going to be there. Because if all of a sudden you go down there, and let's say you go 2-6 in your final 8 regular season games, and you lose in 5 in round 1, and your starting 5 has played together, and we'll see what the minutes restriction looks like, because that's another storyline that J. Michael mentioned. Maybe all of a sudden Kevin Pritchard looks at it and it's like, all right, we could use some tweaking in the offseason, and there's not a whole lot of time to get that done, and you don't have a lot of valuable assets to get that done. You know what tonight would have been, Kyle?
MLB All-Star Game Home Run Derby?
No, but that's a good guess. Live event in New York. A lot of booing happened. Well, I guess booing used to happen.
The
but
draft?
The draft. NBA draft.
Oh, wow.
I'm a huge fan of the NBA draft. And to me, I'm fascinated why it's such a crapshoot.
Do you prefer the NBA draft or the NFL draft to watch as a singular event?
I would say the NBA just because there's more unknown. Like, you see these guys drafted all over the place. And the foreigners, I got Fran on my TV breaking down grainy film of Darko, playing in Serbia League B. And that guy's getting drafted ahead of, Tyler Hansborough or whatever. Insert some, pretty good college basketball player. And so I'm more intrigued by just the variety of NBA prospects that get taken. For the most part, we know these NFL guys. Like or the college guys that go in the NFL draft. We've watched them in college football. But Anthony Edwards, for example, the kid from Georgia, supposed to be like the number 1 pick or, top 3 pick. I mean, there's no way I've seen him play more tthan 10 minutes.
A lot of these guys, especially, some of these guys are not going to Kentucky or Duke. You're not watching them play at all.
Right. And James Wiseman from Memphis, he barely played this year in college basketball, and he's supposed to be kind of a high pick. So I know from a Pacer standpoint, they don't have a first-round pick, so maybe it wouldn't have been, as locally interesting. And I don't even know if there would have been a guy from the state of Indiana taken in round 1. We had Romeo last year, and then JMV's guy, Windler, went, was it early second he went? Or did he go late first?
He went late first.
Was it late first? I hear he's a great golfer. But yeah, I can't think of anybody, and maybe I'm missing somebody, and feel free to chime in and tweet at me. But we've had that long streak here locally of, Indiana high school players that have been drafted in round 1 of the NBA draft, or maybe just drafted, period. But I can't think of anybody that that would have been. Maybe that's a good question for Kyle Nedrip when he joins us after the break. One last thing that I want to hit on. We saw the PGA Tour, 5 guys I think withdraw for COVID reasons. I want to say only 1 tested positive, maybe 2, but a couple caddies tested positive, and I feel like that the quote Jay Monahan, who is their commissioner, said, it, to me, has always been at the forefront of my mind about this. And again, this is with the caveat of, if we want sports to exist here in 2020, we're going to have to live with this virus. And that will make some people mad, and that might not be the most politically correct answer, but that's the nature of it. Businesses are having to operate right now amidst this virus, and these sports leagues are businesses. And it's a very difficult business to be able to run during this, but that's, again, it sounds harsh, but that's just the reality of it. And I feel like with the NFL getting ready to start, and obviously the NBA and Major League Baseball, probably looking at baseball, honestly, if a player contracts COVID, you almost have to treat them like they're on the DL. There is a 10-day quarantine, whatever needs to happen, and that player is on that list, and maybe that exempts you from now you can have an extra roster spot because it is such a, transmittable thing. It's not like a sprained ankle, but you almost have to treat it like that of, okay, we've got 2 or 3 players this week that have contracted it or still, fighting back from it or whatnot, and they're just going to be out, and you're going to have to operate your team and treat it like it's a guy on the injury report. And again, some people will absolutely hate that and think it's an idiotic statement, but if we want sports, especially at a team level, that's how we're going to have to handle things. That is exactly how we're going to have to handle things. And one gripe that I have about how the news is reporting all of this is I don't need to see daily updates on what our numbers look like in Indiana from how many people have gotten it over the last 3 months, how many deaths there have been, how many new cases. Those numbers mean nothing to me 100 some days into it. I want to see, what is the recent trend since we've reopened as a state, stage 3 to stage 4. Show me those numbers of how many people are now being tested that maybe weren't tested early on in this process. Give me more tangible context type numbers that will help me say, all right, I can see why the Colts feel like they can have training camp or the Pacers are going to start things up. Stuff like that. All right, we come back here on the ride with JMV. Kevin Bowen filling in. Kyle Denrip will join us from the Star. We'll go over a little high school rundown with him. Saw the North Central basketball job. Speaking of Indiana high school guys, opened up. He floated around Jason Gardner's name, possibly getting back into the coaching ranks. So we'll ask Kyle about that. And if you got any questions, comments, K-Bowen 1070 on Twitter. You're listening to the ride with JMV, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Sports with Dan Dockich.
Rob Dibble. I honestly think these guys are going to put on a great show. There's a sense of urgency. You don't want a 10-day slump and lose about 8 out of 10 games, because then you're going to be out of the postseason. You know, when more than half of your league is going to go to the postseason, I think a lot of these guys want a piece of that $100 million bonus that they're going to get. So I think you're going to see a lot of great baseball, and I think most of the guys are going to be ready in 2 weeks.
Dan Dockich, weekdays, noon till 3 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Interesting times, Indy. It's good to know Rhino Shield's helping folks end their painting worries, like they did with Bob.
We live in a beautiful English Tudor. It's 2-story with stucco, and the sun just beats the heck out of the paint.
Our crews always follow Indiana guidelines on social distancing. We work outside while you're safe inside.
It's guaranteed for 25 years, so we aren't thinking about painting until 2034.
Right now is the perfect time to get 15% off the 25-year guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield.
If you love to paint, I wouldn't buy Rhino Shield, but if you'd rather use your time for something else, we've been happy to have a lot more free time.
Call today for a free virtual presentation and ask for our showcase homes near you, where you can see our finished product firsthand from the safety of your car. Here's Rhino Shield's Shane Smith.
Call me at 888-RHINO-41. That's 888-RHINO-41.
No paint, don't vinyl, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Hey, it's Rob Belushi from the Bill Estes Ford family in Brownsburg. Brian, are you doing sit-ups in the office?
Yeah. I'm trying to start a new summer workout routine.
Cool. I heard it takes 21 days to develop a new routine. What day are you on?
1.
Well, day 1 is the most important.
I've been on day 1 for 11 years.
Let Bill Estes Ford establish value, safety, and confidence in your new routine on day 1.
Get into a newer, safer car for a lower payment with great deals on our best 2020 inventory.
Right now, get $3,000 off any new Escape or Fusion, or $5,000 off any new F-150. Plus, get 0% financing for 72 months on top of these discounts. And we'll give you $2,000 more for your trade.
Come into Bill Estes Ford today and set a new routine, because 21 days from now, I may be a sit-up machine, but our inventory won't last.
Right now, get $3,000 off any new 2020 Escape or Fusion, or $5,000 off any 2020 F-150. Plus 0% financing for 72 months. Your key is waiting at Bill Estes Ford in Brownsburg.
Great news. Howald Heating and Air is open for routine maintenance and service with a continued focus on health and safety. Howald Heating and Air will serve you safely while fulfilling their promise, which is they will wear proper PPE. They will deliver quality, honest work, arrive on time with a smile, and listen to your questions and concerns. I know Larry Howald values his family just like I do, and he will make sure to keep yours safe. HowaldHeatingandAir.com or call 317-255-HEAT for routine service or emergency needs. Howald Heating and Air, where coming home never felt so good.
Hi, I'm Ryan Kelly. There's never been a better time in history for a cash-out refinance. You can drop your house payment a couple $100, skip 2 full months of mortgage payments, pay off all your high-interest rate credit card debt, and fill up your savings account with cash. That's how you come out of the shutdown ready for whatever the future brings. Get pre-approved for your cash-out refinance today with our 5-minute loan approval, only available at thehomeloanexpert.com. The Home Loan Expert LLC, NMLS number 1326241.
It's the Fan Morning Show with Jeff and Big Joe.
Laval Jordan.
All the issues that are in front of us now with racism and social justice brings it in a whole different manner, just with the emotions involved. Our guys are 18 to 23 years old, and we're all trying to process what's going on around us. Those have led to a lot of good conversations. Certainly not easy, but necessary.
The Fan Morning Show with Jeff and Big Joe. Weekday morning, 7 till 10. Only on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. The Ride with JMV.
Just an average guy with exceptional hair.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
And these music re-entry is something I got to get used to here with the Ride with JMV. I'm Kevin Bowen, filling in for John. He'll be back tomorrow. No worries. And Saturday's got another JMV takeover, if I'm not mistaken. Going to continue to do those here in the month of June as we get deeper into the summer. Before we get to Colin Dunrip, Josh chimed in on Twitter. What do you think of Novak Djokovic testing positive for COVID-19 and his dad blaming it on another tennis player? Is there a stigma? Yeah, maybe. I don't think there should be a stigma, though. You know, if there is, we're not going to be as transparent as we need to be with this. I don't think there should be. I don't look at, friends and family members or whatever in some negative light that have gotten this. No, it's part of it. It's part of life right now. And I think there's no way to operate in somewhat of a normal capacity if we are going to have that stigma. All right, let's what are our phone lines called here? Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. I knew that. It's Kyle Nedder from the Indianapolis Star joining us here on this Thursday afternoon. Kyle, how you doing, man?
Hey, real good, Kevin. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Kyle Udemark and I were talking last segment, and I guess this kind of puts you on the spot, but tonight would have been the NBA draft. Am I missing any Indiana high school kids that would have been drafted that you can think of? He threw out Isaiah Stewart, who went to La Lumiere, but I don't believe was born in Indiana, or at least wasn't an Indiana native. Played at Washington for one season. Can you think of anybody off the top of your head?
No, yeah, and he's originally from New York, I believe, upstate New York, I think, and had played at La Lumiere, but yeah, he wasn't a native of Indiana, and I can't think if there would have been anybody else I'm not thinking of.
Because last year we had Romeo and Dylan Windler.
And you could have thought maybe Trace Jackson Davis could have been somebody, but he was coming back. So not that I can think of off the top of my head. No, I don't think there was. I don't think there would have been this year.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. You've been a little bit busier. I feel like you covered a golf event a few weeks back. I think you did something at Grand Park. It seems like there are some AAU starting back up. Can you kind of give us an update maybe on what the high school AAU circuit and kind of your normal beat that you cover currently looks like right now?
Yeah, I mean, for quite a while, I was kind of writing a lot of sad stories about people who'd passed away from the virus, and wrote a sectional 10 piece kind of after the fact, where we found out a lot of people had passed away who were there, and a lot of people who tested positive or had symptoms who were there, and those types of stories kind of took me through April, and I've done some more of those since then too. But yeah, now sports are starting to open back up. I covered a couple of events, like you mentioned. Went out and covered 2 golf tournaments. The first one up at Crooked Stick, where it was more of a kind of a national event, and that was the first one really, I think in 80 days since I'd covered that sectional, that I'd actually covered a live sporting event. That was about, I think, 3 weeks ago maybe, and then covered a state tournament as well, a golf tournament, and now starting to get into some basketball. We're seeing things reopen as far as coaches can't be there. College coaches can't attend these events, but kids are able to play in actual games now in basketball. So I went out Friday night to the Factory. The first night that was open. It was just more of kind of an open run, not really games necessarily, but kind of a more formal pickup games, and it was really good. It was fun to get out and see some real talented players. Some of the better high school players in the area were there. And then I know up in Fort Wayne over the weekend there was an event up there. Again, these aren't big national events necessarily, but I think these are more of what we're going to see is kind of state events, more formal pickup runs. I even went out and covered an outdoor. I found out some guys were playing outdoor up in Fishers, and wrote a story about pickup basketball outside. Maybe that'll be making a comeback. A lot of these guys have never even played real pickup games outdoors like we used to back in the day. So that was kind of fun. Just kind of a different story, and that was I really enjoyed doing that. So there's been a lot, and always on the high school beat you have coaching changes and things day to day that always pop up. No matter that has not changed one iota, the virus or not. So, now I just finished up writing a story today just before you called about kind of the reentry of actual high school sports, the IHSA affiliated sports, which, facilities will open on July 6th. And then it's going to be a pretty slow reentry process, which I think is good. I think it's going to be, shorts and T-shirts and doing a lot of conditioning and maybe walk through plays and things like that. But it's going to be, very low key for the first couple of weeks. You'll be in smaller groups, and that's going to be what it is. And hopefully, people can stay safe that way. That's the idea anyway. And then it'll kind of ramp up to, hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll ramp up to games and actual events in August. And that's I talked to Paul Neidig yesterday, who's the incoming IHSA commissioner, and very cautious but optimistic that things are on the right track, and hopeful that we'll get there. August 21st is that first week of high school football, so it's really closer than you think it would be. That's 8 weeks away, basically 9 weeks away from, I think, 8 weeks now. So not that far at all, and we're getting there quickly. So time to, plans are tentatively in place and subject to change and fluid and all those buzzwords that you hear with this virus. But I think actually headed in that direction, at least for now anyway.
Bobby Cox certainly got out of that position at the right time. But before we get to the opening at North Central that you referenced a little bit earlier, I guess from an AAU standpoint right now, you said coaches can't watch. Are any of these games like streamed, or are these guys just simply playing for the love of it and for that? Like, is there any scouting element to where these games are recorded and they're sent out to coaches, or is this just strictly pickup basketball with some semblance of organization?
Yeah, well, it's different. The one I went to Friday at the factory, that wasn't streamed or anything like that. That was just more of a chance for guys to get out there and play some, competitive basketball again. But there are tournaments that the one up in Fort Wayne, not even a tournament, but it was kind of more of a showcase that was streamed live. I think it was Summit City Sports up in Fort Wayne carried that broadcast, and coaches are, I have talked to a lot of, organizers and coaches they're much more cognizant of that now, trying to get film out. I just think of a lot of the guys who I think, like Shamar Avance from Lawrence North, who, has one Division I offer, which boggles my mind how that's possible. But I feel like guys like that are just, not really being seen because stuff's not going on, and it's starting to now, but normally I feel like a guy like that would have, 10 mid-major offers at this point, and maybe on the verge of a high major offer. So I think about people like that who, would have had a chance to shine going into their senior year and playing in at least a few events in the spring and then in the summer in front of college coaches. And I've seen, over 20 years how often that's happened, where you have a good tournament and all of a sudden, you're on the radar. But that's a real unfortunate part of this, that I feel bad for those guys and girls who haven't had that opportunity to do that. But yeah, so streaming is, to answer your question, it's becoming a much more important part of that. It's on, it's kind of on the coaches and parents to make sure coaches get that and know where to look for it. And I think some of the, when you're streaming live games, I think that's even more important than, just sending out highlight reels of, kind of hand-picked highlights. I think it's more important for coaches to be able to see the entire games, so they get a better sense of who you are. But, there's nothing like seeing players in person. It's just easier. I always look for, body language and are you supporting your teammates? Little things when you're on the cusp of being a great player. Are you doing the extra things? And I always kind of have fun watching that kind of stuff and seeing how players react. And I know coaches look for that too, or coaches look for, who's the crazy parents in the bleachers, whose parents are those, and that sort of thing. So there's nothing like live, basketball, but at least with video, now we're in a better place to be able to watch that, and people are able to produce those videos than we used to be. So that's an increasingly important part of this process with the virus going on.
Yeah, anybody can look good in YouTube highlights or huddle highlights here in the year 2020. Kyle Nedrep joining us here on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. I'm Kevin Bowen filling in for JMV. I hate to boil it down to just this simple of a question, Kyle, but I'll throw it at you. Is it as simple as we will have high school sports if school's in session in person this fall?
Yeah, I mean, that's the number one. School's got to be in session, and then, high school sports will fall in behind that. I guess one of the questions I had was, and you can kind of look to Iowa right now. They're having baseball, high school affiliated baseball in Iowa is in the summer, and softball as well. And I think it's, and I not to get ahead of what I wrote, but, Paul Neidig, I'd asked him about that. What if, a team has an outbreak of positive tests, and what happens at that point? And it's again, a lot of this stuff's too early still to know exactly, but I think that's something that has to be answered. And he kind of hinted at what Iowa's doing, and there have been teams there. If you have some positive tests, they've gone into quarantine for 2 weeks, and you basically just don't play, for those 2 weeks. And then after everybody has been quarantined, then you come back. You don't, you may have to no contest a couple of games or 2 weeks of games or whatever the case may be. Those aren't going to be forfeits. So you just come back after that and start playing again. And so that may be what we see. There may be volleyball teams who are out for 2 weeks, or, football teams who can't play for 2 weeks. So your record at the end of the season may, you may just miss a couple of games or miss a few games depending on the sport. So that it may not look like, what we normally, think a season looks like. And I think that's a reality too, that we have to expect and have to be flexible with. But I do think, I think everything's going to be done in the power of the schools and the IHSA to have sports happen. And I think that's the track that they're on right now. I think that's what people are expecting. And I don't think there's pressure to make that happen, but I do think it's important. I think the communities and the schools are ready. I think definitely the athletes are more than ready to get started again. So I think that's the track we're on right now on June 25th, and we're only about 10 days away from the start of kind of a soft start of workouts and whatnot. So I think if we can get to each stage safely, eventually, hopefully, again, I don't like the looks of the numbers right now in our country as far as the amount of tests going up, but at the same time, I think this is the track that we're on right now, and hopefully it happens.
You mentioned earlier the coaching carousel, the hirings, the resignings, firings, whatever you want to call them, has really not slowed down. North Central boys' job is now open. Brian Hahn resigned, I believe, earlier this week. I think you had that. Were you surprised by that? I know he's kind of done his own thing before from an individual standpoint, basketball-wise, but you touched on Leland Walker earlier. It seemed like North Central does have a pretty good young core there.
Yeah, I was surprised, and looking at who they had coming back, led by Walker, who he's just to touch on him, really explosive, has a different gear to him, just really a fun player to watch. One of those type of guys. It's worth your $6 at the gate to go watch him play. And with him coming back and a really pretty good core, they'd improved a lot in the last year under Brian Hahn. But I don't think he was probably in it. He wasn't going to coach for 10 more years. I didn't get the impression that was the case, but I was surprised at the timing of it. Paul Logan passing away, earlier this spring. He had hired Brian there at North Central, and I know they Brian thought highly of Paul, and I think he thought highly of Andy Elkins too, the new athletic director. But that could be part of it. And I know Brian, he's a really good basketball mind, does a great job coaching, and I hope he stays in the game somehow, because I think he's a really smart coach and good coach. So, I hope he stays around the game somehow. But, now the question turns to, does North Central hire, Jason Gardner possibly? Right. And that's a name that's come up a lot immediately when it comes to mind for me. I knew he was looking at some other high school jobs in the area, and when North Central comes open, obviously that's where he went to school, and a lot of alumni that I've heard from really would support that hire. So
saw Eric Gordon chiming in on Twitter about it. That's pretty high on the list.
Yeah, and that was even before I'd heard from several others even before that. So that carries a lot of weight, I would think, considering who Eric Gordon is. So we'll see. That would be an interesting story. And like I said, a really good core team there at North Central coming back, led by Leland Walker. So the timing it's late, a little bit late in the game, but so that was surprising on the timing of it. But a really good job, as we know, they're North Central traditional power over the years.
Did I see on Twitter Wells was chirping at you for shooting free throws yesterday?
Yeah, so he was interrupting my free throw. We bought one of those sand-filled bottom baskets.
Oh, yeah.
When the virus, they took the rims off of our neighborhood court, so I had to buy one of those. And every time I'm out there shooting, Wells drives by, so he was interrupting my free throw shooting process there and got me out of rhythm. So
no shock there.
Yeah, shocking, right?
He is Kyle Nedner from the Indianapolis Star joining us here on the Ride of the JMV. Kyle, hopefully things will get back to normal for you coverage-wise in about a month or so, and I appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on, KB. Appreciate it.
That's Kyle Nedner right there on the Indy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I've got one of those half driveway goals in the backyard, kind of Hoosiers look to it. Rusted paint, kind of rusty paint, chipped paint, rusty wood, I should say, rotted wood. Boy, I love going out there shooting 25 free throws, 50 free throws, just trying to perfect my form. We'll see if Rosie Bowe becomes a great free throw shooter in her day. All right, we come back here on the Ride of JMV. Kevin Bowen filling in. KBowen1070 on Twitter. The phone lines will be open, 317-239-1070. We'll go back into a little Pacers Colts talk when we come back here.
It's the Fan Morning Show with Jeff and Big Joe.
Slick Leonard.
Vic might have some concerns because of his injury.
We ought to quit playing this injury thing. It's time to go out and play basketball. If you're getting paid to be a professional ball player, go out there and play the damn game. If that injury hasn't healed by now, I don't know if it's ever going to heal.
The Fan Morning Show with Jeff and Big Joe. Weekday mornings 7 till 10. Only on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
What's next for you in 2020? Well, hit up 1075thefan.com for a chance to win $500 in our What's Next quiz presented by the United States Army.
The sports landscape is ever-changing. Lucky for us, DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, has us covered. This week is full of action from golf to European soccer. Head to the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Check out the special odds and promotions that will be available throughout the week. They're based right here in the USA, not offshore, so you know your funds are safe and secure. You can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. And to top it all off, DraftKings Sportsbook offers their best sign-up offer to date right now. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code WFNI, and for a limited time, all new users can get a sign-up bonus up to $1,000. That's code WFNI. Get your sign-up bonus up to $1,000 only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You got to be 21 or older, Indiana only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions do apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
If you're looking to make an impact, there's no better place to do that than the U.S. Army. Whether your goal is to fight and cure deadly diseases, develop technologies, or seek adventure across the globe, the Army is where all of that can happen, and so much more. The Army is a team of 1 million individuals working together to take the most complex problems in the nation and the world, and to win. Ask yourself, what's your warrior? To find out more, join us during Army National Hiring Days, June 30th through July 2nd at GoArmy.com/hiring days or text JOIN to GoArmy.
Hey, it's Stan Dockich here with my wife, the lovely Lee Ross. Lee, we've had several jobs done at our house by the Michaelis Corporation. You've dealt with them way more than I did. You know I forget everything. Remind me, what was the scheduled work they did and how'd it go?
They were great to work with. Michaelis rebuilt a roof over our sunroom and a structure over our 2-story deck so we could sit outside on the lower level even when it's raining. The ladies at the office kept me informed every step of the way, and Michaelis did everything they said they would on schedule.
Here's what I know. It looks great, and you are happy. And when you are happy, I know it got done right, and, oh, by the way, I'm happy.
Bill, Dave, James, Brandon, and the whole crew from Michaelis did a great job around the Dockage house.
Besides being great general contractors, Michaelis has experts in waterproofing, foundation repair, mold remediation, indoor air quality, emergency fire and flood restoration, and insurance restoration. Spelled Michaelis, pronounced Michaelis. Call 844-FIX-INDY or michaeliscorp.com.
Hey, it's JMV for Love Heating and Air Conditioning. The hot temperatures are on the way. Make sure you're prepared with a visit from Love Heating and Air Conditioning, and they have your well-being in mind, following all CDC recommended guidelines. This company has been the best for 100 years. Nobody is better suited for what we're going through now and dealing with your cooling unit than Love Heating and Air Conditioning. John and Chris Love today, 317-353-2141, 317-353-2141, or online, love-hvac.com today.
Sports Center updates on the Fan are brought to you by Big O Tires. Buy 3, get 1 free on select tires only at your locally owned and operated Big O Tires, the team you trust.
Put an end to mealtime mutinies with Long John Silver's family meals. Mix and match chicken and fish and keep everyone happy. Visit longjohnsilvers.com to find delivery near you. Long John Silver's. Fish, yeah. Price and participation may vary.
Do you need air conditioning service and need to find a local well-trained expert you can trust, like B&W Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning? Find that American Standard Air dealer at IndyHomeComfort.com.
The NTT IndyCar Series races in the GMR Grand Prix of Indy next Saturday at 11:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. The Ride with JMV.
It's called Sex Panther by Odeon. It's illegal in 9 countries.
It's quite pungent. Stings the nostrils.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
That's a little Van Halen right there. Jump, and JMV says, I know no music. Come on now. We just witnessed a live American male scoring a soccer goal in the Premier League. I mean, that's Haley's comment right there. The savior of American soccer, Christian Pulisic, I don't know. It shows you where American male soccer is on the top of my mind, although I do enjoy when they make the World Cup. Granted, they didn't make it last time, but we'll see what happens here in a couple of years. We'll have Jay Michael join us in the 4 o'clock hour, go over Pacer stuff. Malcolm Brogdon testing positive for COVID. We'll talk a little bit about that. And in general, I want to talk more about Orlando, his expectations, his thoughts on that. The schedule, the final 8-game schedule should be coming back. Oh, boy. Do we have a caller here on line 1? I'm nervous what the topic's about. John is on line 1.
Hey, I cannot say first time, long time, KB. How are you, buddy?
Great, JD. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So how long's it been? Is it 8 years?
I would say at least 10.
Is it 10?
Maybe 8,
gosh.
yeah.
Gosh, that's all the way back to Red Zone Radio days, huh?
Those are my IU high atop 8th and Woodlawn down there with Frank Thurber, my old co-host. Do you really want to talk Paul George? I don't want to talk Paul George.
I do. I really do. Yeah, I got to be honest first, but let me start by saying that it feels really weird not having multiple beers or tobacco or any amphetamines in me and being on your radio show. But let's do this thing, right?
Signs of maturity by you.
Right.
We got a couple minutes till the break, so you got to get this in quick.
PG. Let's do PG. So why don't we dive deeper into that? I mean, I'm confused in what our take is and why we're just kind of greasing over Paul George's comments. I mean, you're talking about transcendent talent, great player who, 2016 roster, you look at that, and there was nobody, KB. I mean, you're looking at Sad, Young, CJ.
So how are you getting Anthony Davis if there's nobody?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And like, why now with Paul? Like, why didn't we hear this? Like, he's whined and he's given us a bit of the story seemingly every year. And thank you for the call, John, but we do unfortunately have to hit a break here. But it's just, again, why now? get it out of the way when you first went to Oklahoma City. Address the situation then, have your tell-all. I don't need to hear this like tidbit every now and again because you feel like the Pacers fan base doesn't, like enough of your tweets. And I like Paul, and I think obviously John does as well. I mean, as a player, I don't think he gets honestly enough credit for what he did when he was here with the Pacers, but he's not helping himself at all. All right, we come back here on the Ride of JMV. Kevin Bowen filling in. We will have Jay Michael from the Indianapolis Star joining us to talk a little Pacers bubble in Orlando. KBowen1070 on Twitter if you want to join the conversation over there. You're listening here at 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Sports with Dan Dockich.
Jason Benetti, what do you make of baseball? What do you make of the players' side of all this?
Here's where I'm most sympathetic to the players. The average major league career is somewhere about 3.5 years.
Right.
You got to get yours while you're in your prime. So when somebody says a quarter of your career is being soaked up by some amount of money based on a pandemic that you won't touch, I think you got to go get yours.
Dan Dockich, weekdays, noon till 3 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Bowling, 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 keep them balls a-rolling. Bowling, 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 Royal Pin.
Bowling's back. Same great game, new rules. They're now taking league sign-ups at Royal Pin Entertainment. Bowling in a league is fun, and they have leagues for beginners as well as the competitive bowler. Don't have a team? Don't worry. They'll match you up with others that just want to have fun. All bowlers become Open Lane Rewards members, earning money-saving discounts. Gather your crew and join in at one of Royal Pin Entertainment's modern locations. To join one of Royal Pin Entertainment's leagues and check out their bowling specials, simply download the Open Lane app. Look them up at royalpin.com or give them a call at 465-8484. Get ready to roll at Royal Pin Entertainment.
Royal Pin, bowling, bowling. Royal Pin, bowling, bowling.
Denny Smith here from my friends at Sundown Gardens. If you're staying at home this summer and looking to make your yard your outdoor vacation spot, visit Sundown Gardens for all your landscaping and planting answers. Sundown Gardens has annuals and perennials for your container and garden beds. Spruce up your landscape with new trees and shrubs. Sundown staff is happy to share growing tips. Visit their gift shop while you're there. Sundown Gardens, over 70 years in business, 186th Street and Spring Mill Road in Westfield. SundownGardens.com.
Summer is definitely here, and that means the summer travel season is also here, which means heading out on the open road with not a care in the world. Well, there's not a care in the world if you have a AAA membership. If you don't, for about the cost of a trip through the drive-thru, you can have that peace of mind with AAA. Now, your AAA membership, it goes with you no matter what car you're driving, and even if you aren't driving. So that means if you have a flat tire, maybe you run out of gas, you lock your keys in the car, or you end up with that dead battery, no problem whatsoever. AAA will have you covered. And to pick one of these up, just go to AAA.com or call 844-GO-AAA-GO, because AAA knows that we're starting to get back to some regular routines right now, and hitting the road is one of them. So become a member and have that peace of mind by calling AAA, again, 844-GO-AAA-GO, or go to AAA.com and get signed up. And be sure to ask them also about their auto and home insurance. They can give you a quote right away. It's AAA.com or 844-GO-AAA-GO.
This is a message for all men. After trying the little blue pill, my family doctor said my ED was incurable unless I had surgery. My wife was supportive. She told me it wasn't that important to her, but I knew it was deep down inside. I felt less of a man, less of a husband without that intimacy. I was embarrassed. But all of that changed the day I called the Indianapolis Men's Clinic and made an appointment. My wife went with me, and let me say, my doctor was wrong. We have regained our intimacy. It's truly amazing what they've done for us. Indianapolis Men's Clinic resolved my ED and my low testosterone all in one place. Thanks, guys. No matter your age, your condition, or if you suffer from Peyronie's disease, we can help. $99 for a physician evaluation, test dose, and testosterone checkup. Call now 317-999-9000. That's 999-9000. Or at IndyMen'sClinic.com.
Get up and go now, so you can go tonight.
Here's what's happening with the Fan.
9th annual Tom Dockage Memorial Golf Outing, honoring the healthcare heroes of Franciscan Health, is coming up July 13th at Golf Club of Indiana. Register you and your team now. JMV's backyard broadcasts are back, and the Fan is partnered up with Connecticut, New Belgium Fat Tire, and Evan Williams. He'll be broadcasting live from a lucky listener's house this Friday to kick things off. Visit our site for more information on how you can host future broadcasts. For more information, just click on 1075thefan.com.
This is Indy Sports Center. WFNI, WIBC HD2, W298BB, WIBC HD3, W228CX, Indianapolis.
Hey, I'm off tomorrow, but join Jimmy and Greg Rakestraw, as they talk Colts, Pacers. Kevin Bowen's going to join. They're going to get you set up for the weekend.
The Ride with JMV.
Oh, wait just a minute. Didn't anybody knock anymore?
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Boy, all the small things right here. I mean, literally, I'm two for two, honestly. I'm not going to count the first one. I had no idea what that song was, but if JMV just stuck to this, Van Halen and Blink-182, I mean, that's two ends of the spectrum right there, but I got that on lock right here. Let's head to the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. One of my favorites, certainly to talk Pacers, is Jay Michael from the Indianapolis Star. He's been a busy man over the past few days and week or so. He joins us right now. Jay, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. Pretty hot down here in Florida, but pretty good nonetheless.
Tampa area? Is that where you're at?
Yeah, by Sarasota. Right outside of Tampa. Yep.
Nice. Jealous of that, although probably more jealous of it in the winter than in June. Your latest, I believe you posted just a couple hours ago, obviously the Malcolm Brogdon news yesterday, but the trickle-down effect has a couple of coaches or members of the staff that are also in quarantine, not tested positive for COVID-19, but in quarantine because of the Brogdon news?
Yeah, just because, that's part of the protocol for contact tracing of, who was in the vicinity of Brogdon. All the players came back to get tested. Well, they had to rejoin their teams by Tuesday, and at the beginning of this week, and they got tested Tuesday for the first time. So, and today represented the second test because they get tested every other day. So that's kind of part of the protocol, and to trying to make sure you get everybody who may have been exposed or who may have COVID-19. Get their systems clean before you get them down. You make that trip down to.
Did we lose them?
A couple weeks, I guess, to try to get this all cleaned up. But you've seen other reports around the league from Phoenix having some similar stuff. They're doing similar things. Sacramento. So you could have 40 to 50 guys contracting this, and we're not going to know necessarily every single person who's contracted it, but the league will have a sense of, well, the league will know who they are, but the league will have a sense of the number and how widespread it is. But they believe they can get this stamped out in time to get down to Orlando, because the whole point is ideally get everybody clean, get them to Orlando, then you got to quarantine everybody again because of the travel, and then hopefully if all goes according to plan, then you can go forward and have better control over this once you get inside the bubble.
Do you think the Pacers will be forthcoming if any other players test positive, or do you think this is more of a Brogdon wanting to be open about it?
I don't know. I'm not sure about that. It could be. Brogdon was open about it. I reported that he had it earlier in the day, and then he came out with a statement. Would he have done that if I hadn't had that report? I don't know. I think, knowing him, I would think that was definitely a Brogdon thing. He was okay with putting that out there because, certain guys, it's important also to know because, I always have people say, well, why are you reporting health issues? Well, we report people who have sprained ankles or broken bones all the time. I don't think people actually understand HIPAA laws doesn't apply to people who do what I do. Otherwise, you never know that anybody had an injury. But when it comes to this, I think it's important. And I think Brogdon, being the kind of socially responsible guy that he is, there are people he could have come in contact with who he may not know. And so if you're like, man, I was actually with Brogdon at this march or this protest, and I was arm in arm with him or whatever, that tells you hey, you need to go ahead and make sure you get yourself tested if you have not. So I think that's also the responsible thing to do, especially if you were in a position that Malcolm Brogdon was in.
Can you kind of clear up the date on when players need to let their teams know or the NBA know if they're going to play? I thought it was Wednesday. Now I'm seeing maybe July 1st and just exactly what the details are on that.
Yeah, it's July 1st. It was Wednesday, which is what I had believed leading up to Wednesday. And then the league kind of softened its stance on it earlier this week. And so it became a soft date. Which means it's not really a deadline, really, if you're telling people, well, it's a deadline, but not really. So the reason why they say July 1st is because that's when you have to set in stone your traveling party. You have a maximum of 35 people. So when the Pacers send in that list of who those 35 people are, that list is final. And so that's why they've made it more for July 1st, because that's when they actually have to solidify the party they're taking to Orlando. 35 people. The Pacers typically, like in a regular season, their traveling party is about 55. So they're going to cut 20 people out. You know, it's probably going to be a lot of the .com people who do stuff. That saves a couple bodies. Maybe some people on the equipment management staff. Some scouts and video coordinators and stuff like that. PR staff probably cut some of those people out. They won't travel with more than one, if any at all. I don't know how that's going to go down. So those are the kind of things that they have to establish by July 1st, in addition to the players officially announcing whether they're going to be in or not.
Outside of players and coaches, what's that, 2025? Like, who would be the final 10 of that 35? Trainers, equipment, a little bit. Like, am I missing anybody else that would be in that 35 person group?
Yeah, you'd have your roster of idea. If you had all your players, including your 2 G Leaguers, that's 17 already.
Right.
And you have 4 coaches. That's to push you at 21. You'd have a PR person or 2, which puts you at maybe 22 or 23. And then, you have your training staff, which is a couple people, your medical staff, and, some of the guys who like strength and conditioning, and that fills out the rest of that list, or gets you close to filling out the rest of that list. I think I'm pretty sure, from what I understand, I think Kevin Pritchard's going to be making the trip with him. So, it's like, is Chad Buchanan going to go? I don't know, the GM. So some of those people, too, will be with the party as well.
Jay Michael joined us here on the Ride with JMV. I'm Kevin Bowen filling in. Jay's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Are you expecting any subtractions, additions to this roster? I know Justin Holiday was a name that you floated around as a guy that was contemplating some things. Brogdon said yesterday that he still plans on playing. What are your thoughts on the roster?
I don't think a lot's going to change. What you're going to see is pretty much what you're going to get. Even if Justin, Justin, I was told, maybe a week ago, he was 50-50 when I had that report, but he was kind of leaning towards playing. Does the news with Brogdon and maybe what else happens, in terms of around the country, particularly in Florida, I think that can influence some guys if, they keep seeing what we're hearing about, how Disney and down in Orlando how things are. I think that could influence and change some minds.
Was Justin's, sorry for interrupting, was Justin's hesitancy COVID, social injustice related, both?
From my knowledge, it was more of COVID. He has children. Right. And I don't know if I talked to you or somebody else recently, but I said leading up to this, I think the players who have families and kids, you saw Avery Bradley with the Lakers. Part of the reason why he backed out is because he has a child who has respiratory issues. I think those kinds of things, those older guys, maybe veteran guys, or guys who have families or little kids who may have asthma or something like that, those kind of people I think are a heck of a lot more hesitant about going through with this. But I expect I'd be really surprised if multiple guys backed out for the Pacers. It's tough to figure out, but I think a lot, again, between now and July 1st, depending on what happens, that could change. Maybe it wouldn't be a surprise because, we don't know what's going to happen around the league and what's going to be happening with COVID, around the rest of the country that can kind of change some minds about it.
Jay, when I think last week in your in a story you talked about, or maybe it was earlier this week, you talked about how Nate McMillan and the staff, that maybe winning the first-round series and that goal was taking a backseat, and health is at the forefront of things. Is the minute restriction or the dialing back of guys, is that just a regular season thing, or could you see some sort of minute limit on guys come playoff time as well?
I think that's going to depend individually on some of these guys who, if a guy like Oladipo said, I'll play, but I'm not trying to play more than 28 minutes a game, and I'm not going to play back-to-back days, they'd be like, okay. They're not strong-arming anyone into doing something they do not feel comfortable doing, period, end of paragraph, which is why, so when you say that, when I said that, they're going to kind of balance out the minutes. You're not going to be seeing Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis and Oladipo playing 40 minutes one night and then, they play a back-to-back and they play 38 minutes the next game. It's not going to be that. So that's why I say it's going to be kind of hard to gauge, and that's why I think winning takes a back seat. It's not that they don't want to try to win and do your best, but they have to kind of balance the health concerns, not just with COVID, but guys like Oladipo who have coming off major injuries, guys who have concerns, guys who are going into contract years where they don't want to get themselves hurt by doing too much in this condensed period of time. So they're very cognizant of that. So I think that's going to kind of depend on the conversations they have internally with players who express concerns, and Oladipo is definitely one of those.
Are you schedule, I think, is supposed to be announced here somewhat shortly. Are you expecting kind of what has been rumored all along of whatever your regular season schedule was looking like? That's the next 8 games on the schedule, depending on, obviously who the teams are in Orlando.
Yeah, and that's what I expect. And, the funny thing is, I talked to a bunch of people today. I was calling different teams around the league to kind of get a sense of, because there's a lot of stuff if you ask, people, what is your understanding of the protocols, for instance, for Brogdon coming back? And you'll get like 10 different answers because there is a protocol. The problem is the league is kind of putting all of this stuff together, like, dealing with the schedule. They're changing things on the fly. That's how we ended up with, all of a sudden it's July 1st. It's, not this past Wednesday. That's the cutoff date for declaring. It's a fluid situation. So I think whatever they say today in terms of like, okay, this is the schedule is, it could change by the time they get to Orlando and have to actually play. And that's why there's a lot of, I wouldn't call it misinformation, because I don't think people are misreporting or misinforming anyone. It's that at that moment it's true, but then they tweak it a little bit, and so it's kind of a fluid situation all the time with how the league is trying to pull this off. I don't know how they're going to be able to do this logistically. It's a nightmare. All of them are overworked. Nobody can give you – if you can get the same answer from 2 consecutive people in different situations on the same topic, consider that a success, because I've talked to folks at the league office, and I've talked to, like I said, 8 or 9 other teams around the league, and I've gotten different answers to some of the same questions because their understanding is different. And it depends on the day you ask them. Maybe the day they tell you, but you ask them that question, the answer is different than a couple days later. So that's why you have all this kind of chaos and confusion. So I'd say, yes, I expect the schedule to be what it is, but it may change by the time we get there on July 30th.
Jay Michael from the Indianapolis Star joined us here on the Ride of JMV. From the people you've talked to, league-wise, team-wise, give me a gauge on maybe the percentage of those people that are confident this season will start, will go to the playoffs, and will finish as currently scheduled of these 4 7-game series.
Less than 50. Yeah,
25, 40. I mean, any closer than that?
I'd guesstimate maybe 33%. Maybe a third thinks it's going to go off, regardless. No matter come hell or high water, it's gonna go complete and finish no matter what. The quality and maybe how smoothly it runs maybe won't happen as easy as maybe as the league may make people think that it's gonna all trains are gonna run on time. But I think there's a feeling that they're going to force it through regardless of what happens. But, the biggest concern overall, like what I hear consistently, is how do we get them from wherever our location is, whatever city you're in, to Orlando and there's no outbreaks. Like, it's the travel part. It's like, we got to get him healthy here, but then getting him from here to there to get him into quarantine without incident. Can all 30 teams do that? And if all 30 teams do not, and you get all those guys in the bubble together, and one team somehow or two teams, hadn't dotted their I's and crossed their T's in the whole travel process, now everybody's in trouble. And so I think that's probably the biggest concern out of all of that on why there would be a hitch in this. But I think the belief is that the league's going to force this through regardless. I think the 30 teams, there's not the same sort of confidence that maybe that's the best course of action. Because I can tell you right now, like, Washington doesn't even want to be there at all. And
I don't blame them.
That's just, that's just how it is. There's teams who just, their enthusiasm and excitement of being there, it's not the same across the board for all the 22 teams that's going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, Washington is kind of just a punching bag, honestly, and they're just there to help the revenue, I guess, and get to the 8 regular season games and whatnot. We probably haven't talked much about what an actual standings or bracket would look like, but if you're going to pick kind of a best first-round matchup for Indiana out of the teams jumbled around them, Boston, Miami, Philly, anyone stand out of that 3?
I mean, I'd have told you Miami would have been fine. I think even though they lost twice to them in the regular season, I thought the Pacers were, at the time the league stopped, I thought the Pacers were a much better team than the team that Miami played earlier. And I thought Miami was a little bit less, I think Miami hit its peak early in the season. And that the Pacers were hitting their peak late in the season, which is really what you want. The reason why the Pacers got swept out of the playoffs last year against Boston, which I expected them to lose, I think, in 5 against Boston. But even though they had a good record last year, my whole point was, yeah, the Pacers have a good record. They're 5 seed. I know everybody's optimistic, but they already peaked. They were playing their worst basketball of the season a year ago, and so I wasn't surprised. You want to be playing your best basketball regardless of your seed. So that's why I think Miami's a good matchup for the Pacers now, despite the fact Miami has a better record. Led the season series 2-0. I think they're better suited. If I had to pick a number 2 team, I would say Philly, only because Joel Embiid's always going to be a problem for the Pacers matchup wise. But I think otherwise around the floor, they match up pretty well. And plus, the Pacers are leading that season series 2-1, and the same thing. The Pacers were playing their best basketball were at that point in the season in March, where Philly was not. And so I didn't mind that matchup as much as maybe early in the season. I'd have told you they should avoid Philly and Miami, but things change over the course of 82 games.
Jay Michael from the Indianapolis Star joining us here on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Jay, going away from the Orlando bubble here, I'll end with a couple of non-Orlando questions. You reported earlier in the week about the Paul George revealing on the Quentin Richardson, was it Darius Miles podcast, I think it was, about, there was the best power forward in basketball that wanted to come to Indiana and all of that, and you had mentioned Anthony Davis being that guy.
Yes.
I guess I'll ask you, did it ever get to the point where Kevin Pritchard said, here you go, Pelicans, here's a trade offer, what do you say?
No, and that's why I said what I said. Paul George, there's usually, and you run into this sometimes too, there's sometimes a difference in what a player sees is where things stand versus what a front office person, because they're looking at it through a different lens. There was never a point where there was a deal on the table that the Pacers said no to. And from my understanding, Paul George's portrayal of that is grossly exaggerated. I mean, if I went ahead and started reporting and tweeting out everything that I know of that people talked about, I don't think I'd have time to do my job. There's so many things that are talked about. I mean, there's so much more I know about who the Pacers talked to, who they were interested in at a certain point, but it never really rose to the level of that it was serious. So, A, I'm not going to report it because it's not serious. B, I'm not going to talk about it because it's almost not really fair to them to do that, because all teams do that. And I think this is the same case with Paul George. Anthony Davis, it's not like Anthony Davis was in a position that year where, maybe he was going into that final year of his contract and there was pressure on New Orleans to make a move. The Pacers had to have the pieces to make the deal, which I don't believe they did. The Pacers would have had to gotten a commitment from Anthony Davis beyond the 2 years guaranteed that he was under contract had they found a way to get him, which wasn't the case. And they had to believe that Anthony Davis wanted to be in Indiana, or did you wanted to play with your buddy Paul George? And if they believe Paul George, being fickle as he is, not being the best leader in the world, he was out of there regardless. And if he left, guess what that would have meant? Anthony Davis or whoever that other big name free agent you gave up the house for is going to be gone too. And you're going to be left with a bare cupboard and a team that's playing for the lottery, and the fan base isn't going to really take kindly to that either. So their concerns, it wasn't as simple as, here's the deal, New Orleans wants this guy, that guy, and that guy, and, we'll send you Anthony Davis. It wasn't, from my understanding, that sort of situation, and I think the way PG told it made it seem like it was just as simple as pushing a button, and it was done. And no trade in the NBA has done that easily.
We'll end with this. Tonight would have been the NBA draft. What are your thoughts on you saw from Goga this year? Not a whole lot of run, but he was in the rotation at different parts. What do you think of his rookie season?
He had to catch up to speed. There are times where he's really good. I think his biggest issue is that he fouled too much at times, that he would be playing good defense.
Yeah, he looked lost to me on defense at times.
Yeah, and that's partly because bigs in the NBA are required, and that was understood when he came in. Like, everybody I talked to was like, yeah, the defensive part, because in Europe you don't have to do defensively as much stuff as he's going to have to do in the NBA. So you may have to do, is your man, there's like 3 or 4, you got to do 3 or 4 other things, and you got to multitask. You're the center of the back line, the last line of protection. So I think that part he had to figure out. He still has to figure out, and that wasn't a surprise. I think his confidence in his jump shot waned, but then it got better again, and you see that he does have a 3-point stroke, and so he has potential there. So I think he's going to be fine. Look, he's a number 18 pick. Kind of where I would expect a number 18 pick to be, because let's face it, if he came out of the box killing it and was, averaging 15 points a game and in the rotation every night, instead of an 18 pick, he'd have been like a top 5 pick. So the question is, obviously with guys like that, you never really know what you have until you get to about year 3. So I think he's going to be eventually going to be okay. It's going to probably take until year 3 until you know exactly what he is. But I think he's definitely worthy of having been drafted in the spot that he was, and that he has potential to do some good things down the line.
Yeah, I feel like he showed pretty good touch. I felt like when he caught the ball, and really on multiple levels of the floor, I thought it was going in. Jay Michael from the Star.
Good passer too. Damn good passer too.
Yeah, which is kind of a common thread with those Euro guys. He's enjoying the Florida weather for now. We'll see how busy things get down there next month. He's been a busy man, certainly for the last week. Jay Michael from the Star join us here on the Ride of the JMV. Jay, always enjoy our conversations, and stay safe.
You too, Kevin. Anytime. Thanks.
That's Jay Michael right there on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. What'd you think? Anthony Davis question to appease people. Paul George question to appease people. That's all I got. 33%. That's the number he threw out there. People he's talked to around the league, teams confident about this season finishing. I guess that's probably a fair number. I don't know. I don't love it. I want things to get back to normal. I know I got a little bit of bias with that and everything, and there are a lot of hurdles for the NBA to clear, but maybe quarantine again in Orlando a little bit once you travel down there. I don't know how much that's built into the schedule, but we'll see if that'll be the case. We come back here on the Ride of the JMV again. Kevin Bowen filling in. John down visiting his mother today. He will be back tomorrow, and then again on Saturday for the JMV takeover over on B. We'll focus on the Colts here for the next couple segments. If you guys have any questions, the phone lines will be open, 239-1070. KBowen1070 on Twitter as well. We'll get into a little Colts conversation as training camp is 33 days away. And for what it's worth, the NFL, both, I think, players and teams are still expecting training camp to start on time, but that'll obviously be something to monitor over the next couple of weeks. I'm Kevin Bowen filling in here for John on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Sports with Dan Dockich.
Rob Dibble.
I honestly think these guys are going to put on a great show. There's a sense of urgency. You don't want a 10-day slump and lose about 8 out of 10 games, because then you're going to be out of the postseason. You know, when more than half of your league is going to go to the postseason, I think a lot of these guys want a piece of that $100 million bonus that they're going to get. So I think you're going to see a lot of great baseball, and I think most of the guys are going to be ready in 2 weeks.
Dan Dockich, weekdays, noon till 3 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Here's what's happening with The Fan.
9th annual Tom Dockich Memorial Golf Outing, honoring the healthcare heroes of Franciscan Health, is coming up July 13th at Golf Club of Indiana. Register you and your team now. JMV's backyard broadcasts are back, and The Fan has partnered up with Connecticut, New Belgium Fat Tire, and Evan Williams. He'll be broadcasting live from a lucky listener's house this Friday to kick things off. Visit our site for more information on how you can host future broadcasts. For more information, just click on 1075thefan.com.
Hey, it's Stan Dockich here with my wife, the lovely Lee Ross. Lee, we've had several jobs done at our house by the Michaelis Corporation. Some planned, some not so planned. They helped us with an emergency, if I remember correctly.
Michaelis did some great scheduled contracting work for us, but when we had a water emergency because a pipe leaked, they were all over it quickly. They got the mess dried out and repaired all the damage from the leak, just like new.
Yeah, water in a house where it's not supposed to be can cause a lot of problems. Now it's like it never happened.
Yep, when we were in a pinch, the whole crew from Michaelis did a great job around the house, and what made it even better was they helped guide us through the insurance process.
Besides their incredible professionalism in emergency services and insurance restoration, Michaelis has experts in waterproofing, foundation repair, mold remediation, indoor air quality, and general contracting. Spelled M-I-C-H-A-E-L-I-S, pronounced Michaelis. Call 844-FIX-INDY, that's 844-FIX-INDY, or MichaelisCorp.com.
Guys, prioritizing your health now is more important than ever. Contact the Low T Center and get your levels checked. It all starts with an annual wellness exam where they do a comprehensive health assessment exclusively for men, making it quick and easy to take care of your health. And now they offer monitored self-injected home testosterone treatments. Most insurance is accepted. Go to lowtcenter.com now to book your appointment and make your health a priority. Go to lowtcenter.com now. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
Hey, it's Big Joe for your trusted local independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer, Reinhardt Heating and Cooling. Kevin Reinhardt says this family-owned business has a lot of pride in their work.
Danny started the business back in 1986 here in Danville, and we take a lot of pride in the town of Danville. With a lot of repeat customers, people that I've known basically all my life. And it's just nice to continue to do the service that they trust for over 30 years.
You can trust Reinhardt Heating and Cooling, 317-745-4526. Reinhardt is your trusted local independent American Standard dealer.
It's the Fan Morning Show with Jeff and Big Joe.
Slick Leonard. Vic might have some concerns because of his injury.
We ought to quit playing this injury thing. It's time to go out and play basketball. If you're getting paid to be a professional ball player, go out there and play the damn game. If that injury hasn't healed by now, I don't know if it's ever going to heal.
The Fan Morning Show with Jeff and Big Joe. Weekday mornings, 7 till 10. Only on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. The Ride with JMV.
Bullish friends hanging and banging with you until the 8 o'clock hour. Coming up, we have artists such as Living Color and the Fine Young Cannibals right now. Here's Roxette, The Look, 89.9 WROL.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
We got another goal in the Chelsea-Man City game. I think it's that Belgium guy. What a great free kick. I mean, I believe they call that upper 90. I think so. My soccer friends out there want to chime in on that. That was beautiful. 1-1 for those that have gambling action on the Derby. That's what it's called. I should probably stop talking soccer before I get exposed real quick. Colts questions. Let's head to the phone line. So we got Turnbuckle Bill on line 1. What's up, Bill?
Hey, Kevin, how you doing today?
Good. Yourself?
Not too bad at all. Hey, one of the things I always look forward to every summer is going to training camp. Are they going to allow fans to go up to training camp up to Westfield? And if so, are they going to? I imagine they're going to try to enforce social distancing. But what do you think about that? Is that something that the Colts should consider, maybe closing the training camp?
Yeah, well, hate to be the bearer of bad news, Bill, but yeah, training camp is closed this year and will not be at Grand Park. It'll be over at West 56th Street. The NFL, that was an NFL mandate. They mandated that all 32 teams could not go off-site for training camp. I believe you're only allowed to do it at your stadium or at your team facility. And I'll double-check with Chap when we have him on in the 5 o'clock hour, but I'm like 99% sure no fans. I don't know if you've ever been to their team facility, but it's very difficult to get fans, around those practice fields. I think they did it a couple of years ago with the Bears. But yeah, I think, and something John and I talked about yesterday, if they're allowed to go to Lucas Oil, I think they should go to Lucas Oil and just open up, some of the upper levels. Then, yeah, I'm not saying sit in the 600 level, but why not the 200 or 300 level? That's a great view to watch, training camp practice. There's no interaction whatsoever. Send fans in a different entrance, have them come in for free, and that to me makes some sense, but I'm not sure if the NFL would even allow that.
Well, I'd be all in for that, and I also wanted to mention something about restarting and kind of regaining revenue in sports because of the pandemic. And I looked up the World Series of 1918 during the pandemic, and Major League Baseball actually increased the amount of wins that you had to achieve to win the title that year. The series was 9 games as opposed to 7. So just the fact of pro sports having a history of trying to regain lost revenue, and of course back then you didn't have any TV money or anything. It was mostly all from the fans, and all radio was local. So yeah, trying to recap revenue has always been a big thing of sports. And rest in peace, Michael Jackson. On this day in 2009, the King of Pop died.
There you go. Thank you, Turnbuckle Bill, for that. We'll have to play some MJ maybe at some point in the show. 1918 World Series. Going back on us a ways there. I can't. Obviously a lot's changed. I can't see players signing off on playing any longer than they're already being asked to play. It seems like there's some hesitancy with that. We mentioned with JMV yesterday when I hopped on with them, they're allowing they're taking away the first 6 or 7 rows of each home stadium this season. No fans can sit in those seats as normal. Those will be kind of open areas to have tarps, and then you put ads, local ad can be on there. So I guess that's a small way to try to get some revenue back, but obviously TV contracts and all that has changed so much over time. So we'll see just what the loss looks like for NBA, MLB, and the NFL as well. I mentioned T.Y. Hilton in the opener, something that I wanted to touch on today, and just this is such a critical season for him as he reaches, clearly he's on the back nine of his career. Any 30-year-old wideout. There's not been many 30-year-old wideouts in the NFL that have had 1,000-yard seasons of recent memory. It's a small list. I think it's a list of like Julio Jones, who is a freak. I think Julian Edelman and Larry Fitzgerald, I want to say. That's the list of like current wideouts, age 30 that have been 1,000-yard guys. And like think of their games. Edelman, it is the possession wideout that's, catching 8 for 82 every game or 7 for 74, something like that. Julio obviously is a freak, and Larry Fitzgerald, is built much differently than a guy like T.Y. Hilton. So when I think of Hilton's game, it's more of like, hits the 40-yard chunk and he finishes with 4 catches for 98 or something like that. It is really where he makes his impact throughout a game, and it's less the consistency over a week in, week out standpoint, and more of just kind of the real highs that he occasionally has over the course of the season, which leads to him being a Pro Bowler. So both sides of this have so much leverage as Hilton enters a contract year, which I think is fascinating. I don't expect, and I shouldn't say I don't expect, but I should say that I probably would not. I would not, honestly. I would not extend T.Y. Hilton before the start of the season. And I'm not even saying that for COVID reasons of what the salary cap could look like. I'm just saying because I feel like Hilton's got to prove himself to a degree this year. He's got to prove himself, I think, health-wise. like I said, missed 25% of games over the last 2 years. He's had four different lower body injuries. For a guy that's 5'9" and 180 soaking wet, 4 different lower body injuries. I'm not just overlooking that at his age. He's been extremely durable early in his career. Are we starting to see those nicks and bruises, add up a little bit? I think that's a fair thing for Chris Ballard to question and want to see him play it out. And then I guess on the field, it goes back to what I was talking about in the opening segment of, T.Y. Hilton with Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton without Andrew Luck is 2 totally different players. And just isn't, maybe not 2 totally different players, but isn't at the same premier elite level wideout that he clearly was with Luck. So I think that is where he's got to prove himself this season of, okay, can he play, I don't know, 14-ish games? Can he be a 900-yard guy for you? I think if he gives you that, I'd be giving him a multiple-year deal. 2 or 3 year deal. Let him ride off in the sunset and have a, decade-long career with the Colts and be one of their really all-time greats. When you think about what his numbers would look like at the end of that, it's right behind Marvin and Reggie. In terms of production at that position, Bill Brooks may be thrown in there as well, but that's how I kind of look at things with Hilton, because where he has leverage in this is that he is still the guy that opposing defensive coordinators have to game plan for. How many games did we see last year where Hilton wasn't on the field and it was like, oh yeah, they've got nobody that can win in man, and this will be an easy day for the defense from a coverage standpoint. Jacoby's not going to throw the ball down the field much. And who's going to get open? And that was Hilton's presence. Whatever the team's record is, what are they, like 9-1 or 1-9 without Hilton? That's damn good leverage right there. If you're his agent and you're his representation and you're going to Chris Ballard, especially if Paris Campbell and Michael Pittman, don't make immediate impacts for you, that loses a little bit of leverage from a Colts standpoint as well. But I still think, just to complement that wideout group, if you can have Pittman, Hilton, and Campbell for the next 2 or 3 years, and then you pass that torch to Michael Pittman as that number 1 wideout, whoever the future is at quarterback, here in about a year or 2, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. But I still just don't think you're just handing T.Y. Hilton, okay, here's 3 years and whatever, $15 million a year, whatever, top 10 wideout money is in the NFL. I'm not doing that. I think he's, with Luck, I think he's the top 5 wideout in the league. Without Luck, I don't think he's been better than about top 20. And is that all on him? No. Yeah, some of these quarterbacks have just been jokes that he's played with. But, we saw it in the Houston game last year down there. Hilton had a couple big drops in that game. I know he's kind of coming back from injury and whatnot, but those can't be excuses when you're making contract decisions and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's his value? Which we know that means so much to Chris Ballard. Chris Ballard is rarely overpaying. He's assigning a value to a guy, and that's your value. But I do think Hilton, from a diva standpoint, he's not like a lot of these other wideouts. He's a pretty quiet, sure, he called out the O-line 3 years ago when they gave up 50 sacks in a game to Jacksonville. Honestly, they probably deserve to be called out. But that's really it. Hilton he doesn't really whine much. He hardly ever on social media. I'm thinking of these other wideouts around the league. You can't go a day without seeing him chirp about something. I feel like Ballard would likes that. But yeah, that'll be a storyline to watch, because you have about 12 or 13. You got about 12 or 13 starters on this football team that are in contract years. Off the top of my head, it's Rivers, it's Hilton, it's Marlon Mack, Trey Burton. You want to call him a starter? Ryan Kelly, as of now, is in a contract year. He should be extended, I would think, at some point. Your D-line's got a bunch of guys. Justin Houston, Danico Autry, Grover Stewart, Anthony Walker, Malik Hooker, Xavier Rhodes. Those are some notable names on that list. And obviously Jacoby Brissett on the list as well. I mean, there's a long list, and not just quantity. I mean, there's some quality there where you're going to have to make some decisions on that. Curious if anybody has any thoughts on that. K-Bone 1070, 317-239-1070 phone line. We'll ask Chap that same question as well. Yeah, we're over about 3 months? Yeah, over 3 months into free agency right now. And there are still, I guess, a couple of notable names that the Colts had as free agents that they did not re-sign. I get why they didn't re-sign these names, but, I mean, it's still notable. The 5 that stand out to me, Jabal Sheard, Clayton Geathers, Chester Rogers, the GOAT, Adam Vinatieri, and then don't forget about 100-yard rusher in 2 games last year, Jonathan Williams at running back. So again, I mean, you can make very, very strong cases on why you don't re-sign any of those guys, but still, they've started a decent amount. One's the greatest position, kicker in NFL history, and I mean, you're one injury away at running back from probably being like, yeah, what is Jonathan Williams' phone number again? And that's just kind of how life is at that position. It is one of those things where you get into it and you're just kind of like, well, you're the 4th running back. You're probably going to be a healthy scratch. But if Marlon Mack goes down, then we really, really need you. That's what happened last year for Jonathan Williams. Sheard was the one name on that list that I thought could have come back. Yeah, I just feel like on early downs, the Colts defense, honestly, for as poor as it's been, especially from a pass defense standpoint over the past couple of seasons, they've been really good against the run. And I think Sheard is a big part of that. So I felt like he might have been the one guy to come back. But Ballard pretty much is like, well, we've drafted all these DNs early. You got to play them. And I get that. And you can move Autry out to defensive end now that you have DeForest Buckner. And you can do some kind of combining of roles. Autry on the early downs, Kamoko Turry maybe on the pass downs, something like that to make up for Sheard's loss. And then Chester Rogers, people, I think, make fun of him a lot, but he was a pretty good punt returner for this team when he held on to the ball. But obviously with what Nyheim Hines did last season, there was no need. No need to bring him back. And Paris Campbell, you got to think will slot into that into the slot spot of this wideout group. And I've talked about Vinny. I mean, there's Rodrigo Blankenship. What's his name? Chase McLaughlin. So yeah, I think those are your kicker battles. Larry chimed in. What about Ryan Kelly? Do you think he will be re-signed? To me, it seems like a no-brainer. Like I said, maybe it's COVID stuff that's playing into not re-signing Ryan Kelly right now. This is the 5th year, the final year of his rookie contract, but that is one of the few hits that Ryan Grigson had draft-wise in his later tenure as general manager. But I think with what Ryan Kelly showed you last year, staying healthy, starting all 16 games, that was a big thing for him. And I feel like he's got kind of that lead. To me, he's kind of the perfect balance between Anthony Costanzo and Quentin Nelson from a leadership standpoint. Just a good balance of vocal and action-wise, and I think that's key for a center. And Frank Reich puts a lot on his centers. There's a lot of pass protection responsibility on the centers and quarterbacks communicating that. So I think Kelly in that spot, it's not just, let's throw in, A.Q. Shipley and Jonathan Harrison, have them play center. They want to invest, I think, a little bit more into that group. And so I think Kelly should be re-signed and will be as well. All right, we come back here on the Ride of the JMV. Kevin Bowen filling in for John. We'll talk a little bit more Colts, and then we'll get into Mike Chappell, 5 o'clock hour. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to have Lindsey Jones from The Athletic at 5:30. For those that don't subscribe to The Athletic or missed the story, she, along with a few other writers, combined on a oral history on Peyton Manning's free agency in 2012, and I thought it was eye-opening. Just some great insight, some great anecdotes and tidbits on that we will we'll talk to with Lindsay. Kevin Bowen, K-Bowen 1070 on Twitter, 317-239-1070. Phone lines will be open next segment if you want to join. You're listening to the Ride with JMV, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Fan Morning Show with Jeff and Big Joe.
Slick Leonard. Vic might have some concerns because of his injury.
We ought to quit playing this injury thing. It's time to go out and play basketball. If you're getting paid to be a professional ball player, go out there and play the damn game. If that injury hasn't healed by now, I don't know if it's ever going to heal.
The Fan Morning Show with Jeff and Big Joe. Weekday mornings 7 till 10. Only on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Kids, tell your parents about Forum Credit Union's Sprout of the Month contest, where you can win $100 in a Sprout account. Details at 1075thefan.com.
Have you added up the total amount of credit card debt you owe? Don't be afraid to find out, because it can all go away with a phone call to Golden Oak Lending.
Imagine the feeling of freedom when you owe nothing on credit cards. It can happen. This is James Hawkins at Golden Oak Lending. The equity in your home has risen and rates have fallen. That means you can get money to pay off those credit cards.
Call us for a free mortgage checkup today. Our average cash-out customer saves $904 a month. Plus, you'll make no payments for 2 months.
No time to call? Apply online 24/7 at goldenoaklending.com with our secure Zipline mortgage.
Apply from the comfort and safety of your home or call 317-706-GOLD. That's 706-GOLD.
If we can't close your loan, the appraisal is no charge.
NMLS 114937, regulated by the Indiana Department of Financial Institutions.
Hey, it's JMV for Love Heating and Air Conditioning. The hot temperatures are on the way. Make sure you're prepared with a visit from Love Heating and Air Conditioning, and they have your well-being in mind, following all CDC recommended guidelines. This company has been the best for 100 years. Nobody is better suited for what we're going through now and dealing with your cooling unit than Love Heating and Air Conditioning. John and Chris Love today, 317-353-2141, 317-353-2141, or online, love-hvac.com today.
It's been a long road, but now it's time to keep moving forward. At Hubler Chevy, we're moving forward together. Our sales, parts, and service departments are taking additional measures to ensure the safety of our customers and associates, including sanitizing daily and following social distancing recommendations. We're prepared to help in any way we can, starting with 0% financing for 72 months and no monthly payments for 120 days. Plus, if you're looking to trade in a vehicle, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy ours. If you prefer to shop from the comfort of your home, we can deliver your vehicle right to your door. 0% financing for 72 months and no monthly payments for 120 days. Hubler Chevy is here for you.
Indiana's Auto Giant has you covered with our 10-year, 200,000-mile warranty. Find new roads. Click drivehublerchevy.com.
On selected stock 2019-2020 models with approved credit. 72 monthly payments of $13.88 per $1,000 financed. Expires month end.
Put an end to mealtime mutinies with Long John Silver's family meals. Mix and match chicken and fish and keep everyone happy. Visit longjohnsilvers.com to find delivery near you. Long John Silver's. Fish, yeah. Price and participation may vary.
Getting a home loan should be a fun experience. At the Home Loan Expert Office, we can close your loan in as little as 2 weeks, and you'll skip 2 full months of payments. TheHomeLoanExpert.com.
Indy Sports Center. Whether your team is playing or not. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
1, is this or is this not the XFL? Yes, it is. 2, do I or do I not currently have a pulse? Yes, I do. Let's play football.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Kevin Bowen filling in for JMV today. Turnbuckle Bill. Shout out to him. Michael Jackson, RIP, 2009, I believe Turnbuckle Bill told us. on this day in 2009. A little black or white there coming back from the break. Well, Mike Chappell joining us next segment for his weekly Thursday bit. I forgot that we're on YouTube, Kyle, so I went over there and checked it out. And Charlie chimed in that he says it looks like I have a daily regimen of beer and cheese. Oh, boy, if you ask my wife, she'd be like, yes, 100%. It couldn't be more accurate. So, yeah, Charlie, I'm glad that my double chin's coming out beautifully over on the old YouTube page. But, yeah, tried for the old, diet around the wedding a few years ago, but now I'm just kind of like, this is dad life. Aren't I supposed to be putting on a few pounds? Yeah, I want Rosie to have a nice little gut that she feels like she can take a nap on. At least that's what I'm telling my wife. We'll see how long that lasts. But yeah, Charlie, I that gave me a good chuckle. K-Bone 1070 on Twitter. We'll talk Colts here for the next few minutes before we get to Chappie. Larry asked about, do I think Marlon Mack will be the starting running back all season long for the Colts? He says Jonathan Taylor will take his job and be a 1,200-yard rusher this season. Ooh. I feel bad for Marlon Mack. I feel like he's done just about everything you could ask for him to do. A 4th-round pick, he ascends, behind Frank Gore, becomes more durable, has a great season. Last year of over 1,000 yards, and now you play the position that no one wants to play, or no one thinks that those guys can play it for longer than 5 years. So the Colts decided to draft the guy in the 2nd round, and the future here in Indianapolis looks pretty murky. Starter to me, it doesn't really matter so much, Larry. Honestly, it just matters more of what do those reps look like. The start of the year is that Marlon gets 15 carries a game, Jonathan Taylor gets 12, something like that, and then does that flip. I mean, when you look at where Jonathan Taylor was drafted, what was it, 41st overall, I think it was? Gosh, another goal in this soccer game. Chelsea's now up 2-1. Sounds like it's been a great game. Every time I turn my head, I feel like it's been a great one. Guys that get drafted, running backs get drafted at that spot around that area. I mean, you're thinking, okay, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel. I mean, those guys have come in this league and had pretty good careers early on. And given Taylor's collegiate resume, he's coming from the exact offense you would want of a guy that's, run the full gamut of rushing styles and pro-style offense and all of that. I do think at some point this season Taylor could and will overtake Mack, but I don't want that to look at as like a slight of Marlon Mack, because I think he's had a pretty good run here, but I've been saying it for weeks and will continue to say you don't draft a running back at 41 if you don't think he can be a star. A star. And I think that's the expectation for Jonathan Taylor. I know it's a high bar, but if you're going to trade up and take a running back at 41, you think he can be a Pro Bowl caliber player for, several seasons. We got Matt on line 1. Matt wants to talk, I think, a little T.Y. Hilton, Andrew Luck stuff. Matt, how you doing today?
Hey, what's going on, Kevin? I just wanted to give you props because I think you hit the nail pretty square on the head. I think T.Y. Hilton is, I won't say middle of the pack because I think he's better than that, but I think it just speaks to how good Andrew Luck was. And I've been listening to Dan Dockich defend Ryan Grigson pretty staunchly for the past week or so, and I think this builds on the argument that I have that I think Andrew Luck made that entire team better, not just T.Y. Hilton.
Right.
I don't know how good this team is. I don't know how good this team will be this next year. I think you got it perfectly that Andrew Luck just made this team so much better than I think they may actually have been. I don't think without Andrew Luck, you're talking about T.Y. Hilton being one of the best in the history of the franchise.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I mean, look at Ebron, Matt. Look what Eric Ebron did in 2018.
Best tight end in the NFL 2 years ago. Did he get picked up by another team this year, or is he a free agent?
He's in Pittsburgh, so pray for Western PA. I already see him chirping on Twitter at Steelers fans. So, yeah,
sure, yeah.
I mean that's just him. So I appreciate the call, Matt, and I do think that it is from an individual standpoint, Luck certainly makes a huge impact on those guys. And I don't think T.Y. Hilton has the same career. I won't go down the whole Grigson-Ballard debate because I don't think we have time for it, to be honest with you. I have some opinions on it, and I know Dan has been very staunch in the Grigson backfield about that. I will say this, and I think the foundation of this Colts team is unquestionably on Indiana limestone compared to what it was on with Grigson 3-4 years into the rebuild. That is no debate to me. Chris Ballard has this on much, much more stable ground, whatever, stable footing, anything you want to throw in there. But the winning without luck, that is a fair argument. I mean, Grigson's teams won without Andrew Luck, and how much of a GM does win-loss record matter and all of that? Again, we can get into that when I'm hosting on future shows. But the Grigson teams won without luck. They were better than a 500 football team. And you look at what the Ballard teams have done. And again, I know it's not just that easy to compare the wins and losses, but you've been 4-12 and 7-9, and there are some circumstances that definitely played into that. But I think it gets back to honestly JMV's point of the time is now. The excuses, or fair or not, and I think a lot of them have been fair, of life without Andrew Luck, at some point that can no longer become the immediate go-to about, oh, it's okay, the team didn't make the playoffs. Like, the time is now, and that's with Phillip Rivers under center, and you got to start winning games. But like I said, I do think the foundation, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is set up for a much longer run of success as long as you find out that long-term quarterback than it was year 3 or 4 into the Grigson era. We come back here on the Ride with JMV. Kevin Bone filling in. Mike Chappell will join us here on 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Sports with Dan Dockich.
Rob Dibble.
I honestly think these guys are going to put on a great show. There's a sense of urgency. You don't want a 10-day slump and lose about 8 out of 10 games, because then you're going to be out of the postseason. When more than half of your league is going to go to the postseason, I think a lot of these guys want a piece of that $100 million bonus that they're going to get. So I think you're going to see a lot of great baseball, and I think most of the guys are going to be ready in 2 weeks.
Dan Dockich, weekdays, noon till 3 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Hey, it's JMV for Indiana's Best. It's Andy Moore Toyota in Avon, 5 miles west of 465 on US 36. Online at AndyMooreToyota.com. Andy Moore Toyota is open both online and on-site. Shop whichever makes you more comfortable. You can complete all of your paperwork online, and Andy Moore Toyota will deliver your car right to your house. Andy Moore Toyota will have you going places with brand new Toyota models. They stock a full lineup of brand new Toyota models, including powerful Tacoma pickups, Sienna minivans, and fuel-efficient Prius hybrids. New car, well, maybe not for you. Andy Moore Toyota has bargain deals on the like new used cars. They stock used cars, trucks, SUVs, crossovers, and pickup trucks from all the different automakers to give you the best selection. It's Indiana's Best. Andy Moore Toyota in Avon. You got to tell them I sent you. 5 miles west of 465 on US 36.
Getting a home loan should be a fun experience. Whether you're refinancing to lower your monthly payment and get some cash out, or you're buying the home of your dreams, it's an exciting time. Mortgage interest rates are sitting near all-time lows, and we are locking loans in the 2s. At the Home Loan Expert office, we can close your loan in as little as 2 weeks, and you'll skip 2 full months of payments. Start saving now with our 5-minute loan approval, only available at thehomeloanexpert.com. The Home Loan Expert LLC, NMLS number 1326241.
We see you over there, looking around to see if anyone's watching as you grab your phone to check your credit score. Don't worry, we're not creeping up on you like Mondays, but VergeCredit.com knows what's going on. You're on the verge of something great, on the verge of improving your payment history, on the verge of a lower interest rate. At VergeCredit.com, we know that's no easy feat. So goal-getter, why not choose a personal loan that works just as hard for you? A loan that reports payment history, so each on-time payment could help build your credit score. A loan that believes in personal personalizing the details to fit you and your situation. From the amount to the term and payment, it's time you take control of your credit score with a personalized personal loan from VergeCredit.com. Start your journey to achieving your credit goals today. At VergeCredit.com, you're on the verge of something great. Lending decisions subject to eligibility, credit check, underwriting, and approval. Rates, terms, and conditions apply. Late payments, missed payments, or other defaults on your account may be reflected in your credit report. Loans are underwritten and originated in Salt Lake City, Utah by Stride Bank N.A. member FDIC and serviced by Verge Credit.
As Indiana returns to work, the Indiana union construction industry remains focused on getting the job done so our communities can get back on track. For over 100 years, our contractors and skilled tradesmen and women built and maintained Indiana's hospitals, highways, bridges, schools, and utilities, essential infrastructure that keeps our state moving forward during all conditions. And with safety as a top priority, we're ready for whatever it takes to rebuild our economy. We built Indiana's past, and we're here to build Indiana's tomorrow. The Indiana Union Construction Industry. Value on display every day.
Hi, I'm Jason Smith at the Heat and Frost Insulators Local 18. Installing, repairing, or retrofitting insulation on your mechanical system saves money, and no one does it better than us. If you need a contractor, we're on the web at insulators18.org. Skilled on principle, union by choice.
This is Indy Sports Center. WFNI, WIBC HD2,
W298BB, WIBC HD3, W228CX, Indianapolis.
The NASCAR Xfinity Series races at the Brickyard. Next Saturday at 2:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. The Ride with JMV.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this. And totally redeem yourself!
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Welcome to the 5 o'clock hour here on the Ride of the JMV. Kevin Bowen filling in for John, who will be back tomorrow, hanging with Mom today. Let's head to the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, where we got my cube mate from West 56, a guy that I haven't seen in a while, and it does make me feel a little sad about that. If it was Wells, I probably wouldn't be too sad, but yeah, I actually like this guy. Mike Chappell from CBS 4 and Fox 59 joining us here on the Ride of the JMV. What's up, Chap?
How you doing?
Great. How are you?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Getting any sleep?
Honestly, I feel like we've gotten a little bit of sleep, like 5 to 6 hours. I mean, I feel like that's decent.
There you go.
Compared to some of the horror stories, although there were a few days last week where I was like, wait, what is on TV at this hour? But
I remember with my kids, it's 2 o'clock. This is back when there weren't 400 channels, and you're up at 3 in the morning, and there ain't nothing on.
No, nothing.
And it's you feel very lonely. It's kind of cool, but it's very lonely.
You do. All right, Chap, your schedule, I think, got a little bit of some news on it today with the Hall of Fame announcing that there will not be an induction ceremony this year in Canton. That means Edgerrin James will be inducted next year with, obviously, Peyton Manning. Were you surprised by that?
No, I thought maybe they would. I kind of expected the game to be rescheduled, pushed back till next year. I thought maybe they would still try to hold some form of enshrinement ceremonies. You can do that. Televised, whatever. You could still have done that. They've done everything else virtually and at a distance in the off season, but they want to make this, the week. What's going to be interesting is how they do the 2 ceremonies next year. It's going to be the class of 2020 and the class of 2021. Well, I'm guessing there'll be one day for one and one day for another. And
yeah,
boy, what a doubleheader for Colts fans with Edgerrin one day and Peyton the next. And who knows? I mean, Reggie got pretty good push this year as well, so maybe Reggie sneaks in. But it's going to be a great weekend.
Do you think Reggie could get in? Because I just have this thinking in my mind, Chap, of Marvin had to wait 3 years. There's no way Reggie would get in before that.
Agreed. And Calvin Johnson's up. He'll be first-time eligible. And there was a stretch where he was just, incredible. it's really, really hard. I'm not done the research. I will at some point. It's really hard for two guys who played with the same team for a long stretch to get in. So my expectation certainly is Peyton will get in, but I just don't know that Reggie follows him in the same class. Maybe the next year. There's still a couple of receivers maybe in the pipeline. At least Torrey Holt might get some push, although I'd take Reggie over Torrey Holt any day. And I don't mean that as a slight on Torrey Holt, but yeah, I think it'll be Edgerrin certainly in the 2020 and Peyton in 2021 and maybe Reggie in 2022. And then you've got Freeney and Mathis coming up, so we're going to have these discussions for quite a while.
Call me crazy on this, and you probably will. I might say Mathis is more deserving than Freeney because of the strip sacks.
Yeah, it's funny. During I always used to get along really well with the late John Turlink. As everyone says, one of the great pass rush coaches of all time. And I always tried to get him to say which one. If you could only have one, which? And he said, just like which is my favorite son.
Yeah, you need to give him about 10 shots of his favorite bourbon before he's going to tell you that.
That's right. I've always thought that I don't know which one I'd take over the other because whichever you do, the other is going to see it as a slight, and the last thing I want to do is get Robert Mathis, on my bad side. I think it's what I wonder is how will the Hall of Fame selection committee, which I'm part of, how will they view these two guys who, without question, one of the top two or three tandems, longtime tandems in NFL history. I mean, I don't know who's there with them. Randall and Dolman. I don't know with the Vikings, but what they did for so long, there's no doubt they benefited from each other. But boy, if you'd only have one, which would it be? I really don't know because they were both so disruptive. And like you said, the one thing that Mathis has got was it 47 strip sack or fumbles on strip sacks. And that's not a team record. That's an NFL record. I mean, when you start talking NFL records, he had the 19.5 sacks in 1 year, which Freeney never approached. So
I know it's probably flipping a coin, but that just has always stood out to me. Freeney had the longevity a little bit more, did it for multiple teams, did it earlier in his career than Mathis, but still, just when I think of pass rushers, I think of the impactful plays, and to have the strip sack number, and like you said, NFL record, that's just a slight edge to me if you're going to debate one of those two.
One of the more enjoyable stories I did when I was at the paper a while ago when they were both in their prime is I did a story on Dwight Freeney and Tariq Glenn, pass rush and left tackle, and it was all about the perception of the position and how Dwight could stand there. If he plays 60 plays, he could stand there and not move on 57 plays and do nothing and get 3 sacks, and he had a great game. He's all-pro. And Tariq Glenn could work his butt off and grade perfect for 57 plays and give up 3 sacks, and he's a bum.
Yeah.
But you're right. Well, it's these games are always, we talk about if there's 5 or 6 plays that turn games, and the strip sack and all, and the third and 12 sack by one of them turns the game around, and that's what you want. That's why the guys who get the big money are now your left tackles and pass rushers. You got to pick the quarterback, and you got to go get the quarterback.
And Josh chimes in on Twitter. Mathis did get busted for PED. So yeah, I know. There are some layers to it, but we had a caller earlier, Chap, ask about fans at training camp, and maybe I just totally missed this, and maybe this is just me assuming things, but there will not be fans at West 56, right?
I don't know how they would do that. There have been some times when they've had some events at the complex practice where they've had, 200 or 300 corporate people.
Yeah, or long-term season ticket members, maybe. Yeah.
Right. But I just don't know. It's maybe, but again, what could it be? A couple hundred? I don't know how you would do that. But with all the restrictions they're going to put in place, the protocols on social distancing and really guarding against who gets in the complex, the idea of letting 500 people draw lots in a lottery and you get in on a Tuesday. I mean, are you kidding me? And I saw today where there's talk about how they're going to do the arranging stadiums with tarps over the lower portion, and then maybe some. I don't know how you're going to allow fans in a stadium until you can really guard against infection and spreading the infection. And we were talking on our CBS 4 podcast today. With they're going to put everything in place possible as far as the one thing was it 6 foot different or spacing in the locker room for players who are going to practice for two hours hitting each other. So what does that prove?
One player can shower at a time. Come on now.
I mean, and with all they're going to do, and they're going to do everything they can until the league can put out there, and I can read to how. Okay, because it's testing, tracing, and then quarantine. So let's say T.Y. Hilton tests positive, and then you do the tracing. Well, it's a wide receiver room, and then you would think the offense. So what are you're gonna quarantine T.Y. and the receivers for 2 weeks? The offense. What if it's Phillip Rivers and you quarantine the court? What if it's an offensive lineman? You quarantine your offensive line for 2 weeks. So until the league can tell how they're going to react, because you know somebody's going to test positive, probably for every team, because the percentages tell you they will. Until they can come up with some plan to how they're going to react when player A tests positive, I don't know how you do this. I hope they do, because I'm getting tired of manufacturing stories over our Zoom conference calls. But I just don't. I hope they do it, but I just don't know how they do it.
Two things on that, Chap. One is this. I think they need to have players report a week earlier than they're scheduled to. And I know that'll be difficult to get through the Players Association. But to me, that's what you're seeing right now at the NBA. Malcolm Brogdon tests positive. Well, You aren't playing basketball for a month and a half. So Malcolm Brogdon can go to Orlando, and he seemingly will be healthy. The difference in the NFL is when you report, veterans report July 28th, I think it is?
I thought rookies were the 22nd and vets were 28th. Maybe they make it let's say they make it all the 28th.
Yeah, I mean, that to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because then you're practicing the very next day. You've already missed all the spring stuff on field. Now you're going to take away some players for potentially a week, whatever it is going to be quarantine-wise. That really limits what you're doing from a on-field standpoint. So, again, I don't know if the NFLPA would agree to this, but I say everybody report July 20th. And that's your quarantine. That's your 90-man roster from all parts of the country coming in. And if you've got 8 guys that test positive, okay, you could, whatever, isolate those guys. And then maybe they're potentially healthy to start training camp. That I think it's one way to mitigate some stuff and try to get work started normally, which is such a term that makes no sense right now.
Right, because they're not going to be in the bubble that the NBA is going to have.
Right.
They will be, holed up and sequestered in a hotel, and they'll make that'll be Fort Knox getting in and out of, because there is absolutely no chance, and this is something to talk about later, but preseason games and regular season, you're going to have players going home. After practice after camp breaks, let's say late August, you're going to have players go home and spend time with their family, where maybe the wife or girlfriend has been out to the store, the kids have been to the school, and then you're going to send these players back to the complex. But yeah, and virus aside, these players are going to need, 2-3 weeks to get into football shape, so you don't have 20 hamstring pulls. When camp opens. So they're going to put all this stuff in place, but there are there's certainly more questions and answers. They got guys making a lot more money than you and me making these decisions. So thank goodness. But and again, I've been talking to Matt Conti with the Colts, and he doesn't know how they're going to run training camp as far as the media. Will we be out there? Will it be 2 or 3 pool guys, and we'll be getting Zoom conference calls after practice. So the NFL has had time on its side because of the schedule, and the Hall of Fame thing. That's the first thing they really canceled. That's now off the books. but they're running out of time to where very shortly they're going to have to decide when do you report. I agree with you. Maybe report a week early so that you've got these players and that there's less chance of infection. But what happens if 3 players a team? Who's the pacer guy that's considering not playing?
Justin Holiday. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Justin, the older one.
What if 3 or 4 players with the Colts or Houston or Baltimore decide that it's just not smart to do that? These young kids. Here we go stereotyping. The young kids they feel invincible. They really do.
Well, and also the NFL shelf life is a lot shorter than other sports.
Yeah, there you go too.
And so, there will be some people that'll say, "Screw that." Maybe I'm still not doing it, but
if you're
it's just different
kid,
than baseball,
Right. But if you're a young kid and you have every reason to not play, I assume the league's not going to give you your contract and give you the money that you're due because you're not playing. And like you said, when you lose a season, holy smokes. What's the average career? 3.5 years? I mean, there's so much involved. Again, I hope the heck they play. And I would love to really be in those rooms where they're discussing just not what they're releasing, but maybe the more pessimistic approach is, this could happen, and again, if you lose 4 or 5 players on a Thursday before the opener in Jacksonville. What do you do? What do you do if it's 4 key players? So I always, whenever I write about this with the TV guys, the comments are always, you idiot. Why are you hating on people and why they're going to play and this, that, and the other. Well, no, these are very real questions, and when you watch the news, things aren't getting better. The spreading is actually increasing, and I don't know. We'll see, but in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to have a much, much better idea of what's going to happen.
He's a Hall of Famer, the Pro Football Hall of Fame voter, Mike Chappell, joining us here on the Ride of JMV. Kevin Bowen filling in. Chap, we were talking T.Y. Hilton a little bit earlier, and I got this question from Matt that I will throw at you. I think it's a great question. Involves Hilton and Marlon Mack, both guys in contract years. Matt says, who's more likely to get extended? T.Y. if he has an 1,100-yard season and 9 touchdowns, or Marlon if he goes for 750 and 12 touchdowns?
Hilton. I never really bought into what Bill Polian used to say, or a lot of guys believe to where, unless you get an exceptional guy, it's kind of like 4 years when you move on, you reload. They didn't take Jonathan Taylor just because he's a really good talent. I think they see him maybe as that next guy. T.Y., what is he, 30? Is he going to be 31?
Yeah, he'll be 31, yeah.
But you can play, and he already said that his next contract's his last one. So if T.Y. shows he can stay on the field, and this last year is when he is really the first year he's really the tail end of 2 years ago, but when he really missed serious games. So if those were just aberrations, he's still got 2 or 3 minimum years of quality play. And they've had such a hard time finding good receivers. I think you take the approach that as good as Marlon Mack can be, and I was stunned. Marlon Mack, did he just turn 25 or 24?
He's young. I think it's 24, which is very young for a rookie contract.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But I just think that unless you get that special guy, which I don't know what special is, I thought Todd Gurley might have been special or whatever. But, what is he now? Unless you get an Ezekiel Elliott, I just don't think you really look past the guy's rookie contract. And, I'd love to have been a fly in the wall when the Colts took Jonathan Taylor with Marlon Mack. I mean, they said the Colts said the right thing. Well, Marlon said, yeah, let's go, let's win.
Come on.
I'd love to have really heard what he felt.
Yeah, I'd like to see the text to his friends, not the text he sent to Frank Reich.
Oh my goodness! I want to see. I'm really interested, and I've written it a couple of times, and you have too. Is how do you divvy up the carries? I don't know how you do it. I wrote about how in 2006 it worked with Adai and Dom Rhodes, but it's rare that you have two quality guys, and you get each one of them enough carries to where they get into the groove and all that. And it's funny. Ted Marchibroda used to say that if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. It's not the same with running backs, of course, but this franchise has almost always been the feature back. I mean, Eric Dickerson and Falk and James and Frank Gore, and even when Marlon Mack has been healthy, he's been the guy. He's been the guy that's got the bulk of the carries. So that's another reason that we need to have football coming up. Because God, there's 10 storylines that I just can't wait to really see unfold with this team. Did they make enough moves to get back to the playoffs, and not just the playoffs, but make a push in the playoffs? And as Rivers got more in him, and Buckner, and I just think that it's a fascinating season, but got to play it first.
Who plays more games this season, Chap? Jacoby Brissett or Adam Vinatieri?
Can they both be zero? Brissett. Just because I sort of think that
more games in the NFL doesn't have to be with the Colts.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't talk to Vinatieri here because it's funny all the time that we've talked with Chris and Frank about Vinny, whether it started at the combine or whatever.
They're just afraid to say no.
We haven't talked to him and have met with him. He's rehabbing. Well, I'll tell you, if I think that Vinny's in my future in any way, shape, or form, I'm talking to him. I'm getting a gauge to where he is. So I think there's a chance Brissett could play if Rivers gets hurt, although he's got that long streak on. I won't be surprised if in the next month or 2 months that Vinny calls. He won't call a press conference. It's not him, but it'll get out that he's retiring. When I talk to him, whatever it's been, the off-season blurs together. He was one of those where, yeah, I'd like to play. I think I can still play when I'm healthy, but there was always that but in it, and I think he's not going to go to Jacksonville to get 50 more points for his records. He wants, if he plays, it'll be with a team that's got a chance to win a championship. And I don't think he would. I don't think he'll be on a roster to start a season because your contract's guaranteed. He'd be one of those guys, the week 2 guy. But my feeling from talking to him, as much of a competitor as he is I just think he's sort of coming to grips with the fact that last year, as bad as it ended, who wants their last kick to be a thump, return for a touchdown? But I just had a feeling that he's done.
And I can't see him, Chap, being on the same list with Cody Parkey, Cairo Santos, and, Greg Joseph as a triout guy week in and week out I can't see him doing that.
See, again, he's got such the competitive nature and the pride. I agree with that. It would almost be like, no, if you want me, sign me. You're not going to sign a guy sight unseen. You're just not. But have him to think he would come in week 4 as one of those guys. You're right. I don't see it. I wish he would have a chance to go somewhere and erase the memory of parts of last year, and with the injury, and it was injury induced. It really was, and we could argue another program whether the team should have, which we did in the media room a lot. They should have acted before he simply couldn't kick anymore. But it ends for everybody. Even a guy that's played for 24 years.
Yeah, and still should not undermine one bit that, in my opinion, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Right. That's another one. I mean, I as much as as many guys as I've put up and presented for the Hall of Fame, consideration, I've never had the chance to stand up and say Peyton Manning and then sit down, because normally it's about 8-10 minute presentation. Vinatieri, you can't do that. But if he was at any other position than kicker, you could.
Yeah, for sure.
Because what he's done at a kicker is certainly unprecedented, and some of the records he's put up there will not be reached because no one's going to play that long again.
Well, Chap, I hope you're staying safe, and I really hope I see you on July 28th.
I hope so. I was talking to Zach and Stephen Holt. You just need some contact with people. I mean, it's great to stay in contact with Twitter and messaging, but I want to see what you look like. I forgot what you look like.
Well, I had a comment earlier on YouTube that the guy says that it looks like my diet is beer and cheese, so I'm glad the quarantine has really really helped me out in that category. I'm a dad now, chap. I got to have a dad body, right?
There you go. You're right. You got so like when you bend over to pick up your notebook, there's a little bit of a butt crack there. You got.
I've seen that in the locker room way too often.
I hear you.
He is Mike Chappell from Fox 59 CBS 4's weekly Thursday segment. Chappie, always enjoy it. Thanks for hopping on.
You and your family be safe.
Will do. Appreciate that, Chap. That's Mike Chappell right there on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. He is one of the best. We come back here on the Ride to JMV. We'll close out our guest, Lindsey Jones from The Athletic. Again, a tremendous oral history on Peyton Manning's free agency in 2012. Some terrific anecdotes in there. If you haven't checked that out already, you'll definitely want to listen to this. So we'll have Lindsey join us here coming up on 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Do you need air conditioning service and need to find a local well-trained expert you can trust, like Family Heating and Air Conditioning? Find that American Standard Air dealer at IndyHomeComfort.com.
Are you thinking about selling your investments and getting out of the market right now? Hi, I'm Rick Edelman with 4 quick questions before you do. Do you have a diversified portfolio? Is your personal situation and are your long-term financial goals unchanged? Are you rebalancing your portfolio like you should? And do you have sufficient cash reserves? If you answered yes to all 4 questions, you don't need to change your investments. But if you didn't answer yes to all 4, then call us right here at Edelman Financial Engines right now. If you're not properly positioned to weather this storm, you could be at risk. We've helped thousands of people just like you get through wild markets just like this one over the past 3 decades, and we can help you get through this crisis too. If you're at all uncertain, call us at 888-PLAN-RICK. That's 888-PLAN-RICK. Or visit us at rickedelman.com. That's ricedelman.com. Call us and call us right now.
Interesting times, Indy. It's good to know Rhino Shield's helping folks end their painting worries, like they did with Glenn.
My wife actually, on our old house, on our roof, and the paint can then fell, and it was at that point we said, we just really don't want to do this anymore.
Our crews always follow Indiana guidelines on social distancing. We work outside while you're safe inside.
There is an R factor to the paint, and so we actually feel as though we're reduced our heating bills and even our air conditioning bills just because of the R factor.
Right now is the perfect time to get 15% off the 25-year guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield.
And it actually transferred to the new owners.
Call today for a free virtual presentation and ask for our showcase homes near you where you can see our finished product firsthand from the safety of your car. Here's Rhino Shield's Shane Smith.
Call me at 888-RHINO-41. That's 888-RHINO-41.
No paint, don't Rhino, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Hey, it's JMV, and being holed up in your house, the one thing maybe during all this you found out is that water is incredibly important. I've had Connecticut's whole home water treatment system for years. It has changed my view on the importance. Join me in the great water revolution. For a limited time, call Connecticut and tell them you want the JMV 20 discount. You'll get a whopping 20% off your purchase for the exact same system I have. Visit ConnecticutIndy.com to learn more, or tweet me at JMV1070, and I'll give you the scoop on why you need to choose Connecticut.
Response to Diamonds Direct's incredible free finance offer has been amazing. People are driving for hours to take advantage of 5 years zero-interest financing with nothing down. But listen, these are the final days. This aggressive offer ends on June 30th and will not be extended. So don't wait another minute. Get to Diamonds Direct now. Pick any item. Get the unbeatable price Diamonds Direct is known for. Pay nothing down and spread your payments over 5 years without paying a dime in interest. It's the smartest way to buy, and it makes everything more affordable. An $8,000 designer engagement ring is just $134 a month. You can even finance the sales tax. Rings, earrings, pendants, bracelets, bands, colored gemstone jewelry, one-of-a-kind designer pieces. Everything's included. But there's one catch. This is a limited time offer, and it ends Tuesday, June 30th on approved credit. 5 years, zero interest, nothing down, nothing held back. Exclusively at Diamonds Direct.
We all see the world a little differently now. We notice little things we used to take for granted, like driving. Something as simple as just hopping in the car to go to work or take the kids to school. But roads don't just happen. They're built by men and women living in central Indiana. It's as easy to take those workers for granted as the concrete and asphalt you drive on. Members of Laborers International Union of North America maintain and build Hoosiers' roads, bridges, and highways. They're the ones you pass as you drive by the orange barrels. It's hard work. It's dangerous work. And yet there they are, doing the essential work to make sure you have a smoother, safer ride to your destination. And just like you, they want to get home safe too. So, sure, take the roads for granted, but remember the local workers who make them safe for you.
This is Ray Hobbs, business manager of Labor's Local 741. Everyone deserves a safe place to work. Do your part in the cone zone. Slow down, open your eyes, pay attention.
A message from Indiana's affiliated locals of Laborers International Union of North America.
Hi, I'm Ryan Kelly with thehomeloanexpert.com. The housing market is really heating up and it's about to take off. Folks have been sitting on the sideline waiting for that right time to go out and look for the home of their dreams, and that time is now. We are currently pre-approving record numbers of buyers, and they're all waiting for that perfect house to hit the market. If you're even considering buying a new home, you need to get pre-approved today. thehomeloanexpert.com. The Home Loan Expert LLC, NMLS number 1326241.
It's the Fan Morning Show with Jeff and Big Joe.
Doug Rice.
I've been lit up by people saying, well, NASCAR's given up on its last group of fans. But I've always said the extremists on either side make the biggest noise. If putting a Confederate flag on top of your RV is the reason that you went, I don't know that you're a race fan or not.
The Fan Morning Show with Jeff and Big Joe. Weekday mornings 7 till 10. Only on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. The Ride with JMV.
What did you say? I said you need a water break. You need a water break. Water is for cowards. Water makes you weak. Water is for washing blood off that uniform, and you don't get no blood on my uniform. Boy, you must be outside your mind.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Welcome back to the Ride of JMV. Kevin Bowen filling in for John, who will be back tomorrow. He's going to be outdoors tomorrow. You say McCordsville, Kyle? That's a trek for old John to get up there, but he'll be outside, which will be awesome for him to get back to kind of his normal Friday routine in the summer. And he'll be doing his usual JMV takeover on Saturday night. I've been teasing it for a couple segments now, and I'm excited to talk to Lindsey Jones about this from The Athletic. Her colleagues and her combined on just an awesome oral history story. It's really one of the reasons why you should subscribe to The Athletic if you are able to. And about Peyton Manning's free agency back in 2012. And Lindsey joins us now on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Lindsey, thanks for hopping on.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. First, I guess, I know Nikki, and can you pronounce her last name for me?
Jabvala.
She did a lot of work as well, and feel free to mention anyone else that is combined on this story, but it was pretty much, over 20 people interviewed from different organizations, different, walks of life, honestly, about Peyton's oral history. Where did the idea come from, and walk me through the execution?
Well, so the idea came from, last week, and I guess bleeding into this week a little bit, at The Athletic, we've been doing these, we call them blitzes, where it's a whole lot of stories on one specific topic. We've been doing it throughout this whole unconventional off season where there hasn't been live sports. And there was a free agency blitz that was pitched, and we were all kind of just, told to, hey, send us stories, send us ideas. And it turned out we had 3 or 4 of our different writers who covered different NFL teams that pitched ideas to write about Peyton's 2012 free agency. And we kind of realized, well, we're not writing 4 different versions of this Peyton Manning story. Let's see if we can just do the definitive Peyton Manning story. And really it hinged on, would we get Peyton for the story? And, Nikki, as our Broncos beat writer, was chipping away at that for a while. And, we were told it kept getting pushed back, and but then he agreed to it, and we were told it would be, 7 minutes long. And then ultimately, you guys know how Peyton is.
I was shocked when I saw him in there, to be honest with you.
But literally 3 weeks ago, we just didn't think it was going to happen. But then when he agreed to it and he called, they spoke for an hour. So we had, it was almost 20 pages alone of Peyton Manning's direct transcripts. And when we saw how detailed his memory was, which is no surprise to anybody who knows Peyton and what kind of storyteller he is, we realized it had to be an oral history. So from there, we went about calling up everybody we knew from all of these teams that were involved and trying to just flesh out all of this story, whether it was from the Denver side, Tennessee, Arizona, Miami, a little bit of Seattle, and definitely San Francisco. The Jim Harbaugh anecdotes are some of the best parts of the story. So that's really kind of where it came from. And then we had a companion piece that ran the next day, also on The Athletic, where we kind of looked at, and that was the other idea, was looking at what happened to the rest of the league, and specifically the teams that didn't get Peyton Manning in 2012. What was kind of the butterfly effect there, and what would have been different for all of those teams, and then also different for the Broncos if Peyton had chosen differently.
I definitely want to get to the Harbaugh anecdote about the peanut butter and jelly with Mrs. Cutcliffe a little bit later, which is priceless, like you said. But just for those that missed the article, basically Denver, Tennessee, San Francisco, Washington, Miami, and I guess Arizona.
Yeah.
Would kind of be the final six. Like you said, Seattle tried to jump in there. I get the feeling that Tennessee was the runner-up. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it was Tennessee, but I think San Francisco was also a lot more serious of a contender than I think anybody really gave them credit for at the time. And that was probably the most interesting thing or surprising thing that I learned through this process, was just how involved they were, because, they publicly denied it and really lied about it for years. And, meanwhile, Trent Baalke's flying to Denver and meeting with Peyton in Brandon Stokely's basement, while telling the media that they have no talks about Peyton Manning, So, I think those are the teams. But, Tennessee, there was a lot that was attractive to Peyton about it. Although, I think it was almost like Tennessee tried too hard. They offered him, they were trying to offer him like bigger contracts, and, Archie Manning always says, they offered Peyton a lifetime contract, which is not something that you can do under the CBA. And, there was an offer of an ownership stake and this sort of stuff, where ultimately he picked the Broncos, who probably had the least, aggressive push. Not to say that they weren't trying hard to get him, but they pressured him the least. And, they weren't fawning over him. They were really just trying to say, here's what we can offer you. Here's what this offense can look like. Here's what we'll build around you. Here's the positive things, but it wasn't this like, oh, Mr. Manning, we'll do anything you want kind of scenario that maybe we saw from Tennessee.
Yeah, it seemed like Tennessee was the college head coach that is texting you right at midnight when he's allowed to contact you, and whereas Denver, and specifically, I guess, John Elway, just he had a great approach to it, and Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker and Von Miller didn't hurt by any means, but still, I just felt like Denver had the right temperament and knew, thanks to Elway, kind of what Peyton potentially was thinking, or just his thought process with it.
Yeah, definitely. Elway was a big part of that. The way that he was the pitch was, I don't think John Fox gets enough credit, though, for his role. And he was the one who actually made the initial call to Peyton. And it was interesting because Peyton Manning was on Jim Irsay's plane heading from Indy back to Miami, where he had been kind of spending his offseason, when John Fox called him. He was the first call that got through after that press conference in Indianapolis, that really, emotional day. And in that, he really kind of set the tone for the Broncos' pursuit in that initial phone call, where he didn't say, hey, man, you got to come to Denver. We can't wait to see you. He said, I hope you're okay. Just care about you as a guy. And, if you're ready to talk, if you want to talk, we're here. We'd love to bring you in. But it was very much approached from like a friend, as a guy who cared about him. And they weren't even that close. They had been at Pro Bowls and gone golfing. So they had a lot of golf connections from, the rich people golf clubs in the South. And, it just really set the tone for what the Broncos' entire pursuit was going to be. And I also thought it was interesting. I talked to Adam Gase, who was the quarterback's coach at the time, and he had never met Peyton before it. But, his first thing he did was he called Clyde Christensen and Frank Reich, and to basically get the lowdown on, like, what does Peyton want from his coaches? And they told him straight out, and they said, look, he doesn't want to be I think his quote was like, he doesn't want somebody to stroke him and, blow smoke about it. Like, he wants somebody who's going to say, this is what our offense is going to look like. This is how I'm going to help you. These are the players we're going to put around you. Don't pressure him. Just have the answers. Give your plan. He wants to have answers for what you're going to do and why you're going to do it. And so they really had that intention going in, and that was largely built off of the conversations that they had with people in Indy.
And I found it interesting. Frank Reich eventually was an assistant in Arizona, so they were a team that threw their hat into the mix as well. He was previously in Indy. This is the Jim Caldwell era when Peyton played his final season. Lindsay, two things stood out to me, Peyton specific, I guess. One was just how secretive this entire operation was and how Peyton wanted that to be, and how almost deathly afraid he was to show people his arm.
Yeah.
He was so scared of even showing, these people in the NFL, which, I guess they could be the opposing team at some point, but still, he was very secretive and private about, hey, here are my private workouts, or, hey, you can come and watch me throw. That was a big hurdle for him to clear.
Oh, it was huge because, at that point, he was only his surgeries were, you probably remember the exact timeline even better than I do, that the surgeries that he had during 2011. But, he was only a few months, post the spinal fusion surgery. And only a few people had really seen him and seen what he looked like physically, what he was able to do. And it was still really limited. We remember he didn't have feeling in his fingers still at that point. He couldn't grip right. He wasn't being able to lift like he'd like to. And, so really it had been this very tight circle. It was David Cutcliffe who was kind of running all of his workouts, his dad, his brothers, and that was about it. So it was a really big step for him to kind of, not just to agree to work out, but to even kind of break out his iPad and show. And it was the first person he showed was John Elway, to show you, here's what I actually look like right now. And, I think it was very telling and very also kind of in line with who Peyton is, that, he didn't want to pretend that he was going to be the same player. I think he was very clear with these teams. And I know he certainly was clear with the Broncos that during that process, he didn't know what he was going to look like and what sort of player he was going to be and if he was going to be able to come back to, a functional level, let alone an MVP kind of level. And, that's why they went into this process saying there's not going to be a bidding war. This is our number. And if you're comfortable at, I think let's say it's $19.5 million a year, then we'll be in. But he wanted the deal structured as a series of one-year contracts because he just really didn't know what he was going to be like. And he didn't want a team to be tied to him, when the financial constraints of the quarterback contracts put on a team to necessarily be tied to him for 4 or 5 years if come September he wasn't going to be able to throw. It was very interesting, and just how nervous he was. And he really just had to get over it. And it was the first step was showing John Elway the videos. The first workout was for the Niners, in front of Jim Harbaugh. And, of course, Harbaugh wants to play burnout with him. It's just such a very typical Harbaugh thing. But that's just setting Peyton up to fail at this point where, he can't throw. He couldn't really throw that hard to begin with. He couldn't throw that hard at the end of his career. But, 5 or 6 months post spinal fusion surgery, he wasn't throwing hard. But, of course, here comes Harbaugh. I can't resist.
Harbaugh wants to go to the minor league baseball game and hit the radar gun, on the concourse with Peyton. Lindsey Jones from The Athletic joining us, great feature writer, covers the NFL. Last, I guess, kind of anecdote or something that stood out to me was the Harbaugh thing. And first, I will ask you maybe what was your favorite anecdote that you learned throughout this piece?
Yeah, obviously the Harbaugh anecdote, it's just because it was just so classic Harbaugh. And if you haven't read the piece, it's basically they were, and one of the other things that was so cool about Peyton's free agency journey was that, he could have been wined and dined in all of these cities, that he could have stayed at the Four Seasons and he could have gone to the best steakhouses and stuff in every city. But instead what he did was he stayed at Brandon Stokely's house in the Denver suburbs. He stayed at Ken Wisenhunt's house in Arizona. He was staying with David Cutcliffe and Cutcliffe's family when he was working out in Durham. And so when the Niners and Harbaugh, it was Harbaugh and Greg Roman flew to North Carolina to go watch him work out. And they had all their meetings over at Cutcliffe's house in the basement. And, they get ready. They finally say, okay, we're going to go over to the facility. We're going to work out. And, Mrs. Cutcliffe, before they go, say, oh, can I get you guys anything to eat? And, Peyton says, no, thank you, Mrs. Cutcliffe. And, I think Greg Roman says, no, I'm fine, thank you. And, of course, Jim Harbaugh says, you know what, yeah, I'll take a PB&J, which is – and then, of course, we went back to Jim Harbaugh to say, do you remember this PB&J story? And, he kind of in a roundabout way said, that does sound like something I would do. I do love PB&J. Absolutely. I was like, that's just so classic. So I loved that. I mean, when Nikki sent over the Peyton transcript, I literally laughed out loud when I read that anecdote because it was so perfect. And I was reading it. I could hear Peyton saying it and I could hear Jim Harbaugh saying it too. And it just so tracks with both of them. And then there was just a lot of kind of funny stuff about, he moved into Mike Shanahan's house in Denver. So Mike Shanahan had this, when I was at the Denver Post at the time when in 2012 when this happened. And we used to write a ton about Mike Shanahan's house when it was under construction because it was 32,000 square feet. It was like a really big real estate deal in Denver. And it would drive him crazy that we would write about it. But, he was the coach in Washington. So he was really only living in this house a couple months a year. And it was just him and his wife. And, he said, hey, Peyton, just move your family in until you get settled, until you get a place. Don't feel like you have to stay in a hotel. So it's this 32,000 foot, wall to wall marble house. I mean, the most ridiculous decoration. It's actually on the market right now. So you can actually see the listing right now. It's pretty ridiculous. But so that's where he moved in, and they lost Marshall one time, Marshall Manning, who was 1 year old at the time, which is totally understandable in a house that massive.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But then one time he also got himself locked in because the security system was so elaborate, and John Lynch went to try to pick him up, and they're staring at each other through the glass door to get out because Peyton couldn't figure out how to get himself out of the house without setting off and tripping all the alarms. And so it was something, Lynch joked that it was something like 90 minutes before they could, extricate Peyton from the house. So, it's just all these kind of really funny little anecdotes that went into this. But, it's been 8 years and it feels like there's not a lot about Peyton that we didn't already know. And especially about that from the Denver perspective, I thought I knew all the big stuff, but it was really cool to learn all of these new nuggets and things that are so very specific to that moment in time, to Peyton Manning, and to a scenario that we'll probably never actually see again, at least in pro football free agency.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. So some people are like, oh, it's 8 years. Who cares? Trust me, there's a lot of people in this town that care a whole lot and will obviously remember that press conference and that day for the rest of their lives, but just the amount of new information, and credit to your colleagues and all of the work that went into that, because without Peyton and without those stories, maybe it doesn't get at least the same attention that I feel like it deserves.
Oh, for sure.
So I thought it was tremendous work.
Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't have written it that way without Peyton's participation. I think he's just very clearly at this point, he's almost, 4 years post-retirement, very much moving into this, kind of a broadcast role where he's very much he's always been an NFL geek. He loves NFL history, and now he realizes that he is part of this NFL history. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's an episode of Peyton's Places that has to do with this at some point. I've kind of heard rumblings that we might, so maybe it was fresh on his mind and something he was already thinking about. But it was kudos to him to opening up. And the coolest part about it too was that, he didn't embellish these stories. Every time he would say something, we went to somebody else and say, well, do you remember this? Or what happened in this? And time after time after time, it all checked out. All of the anecdotes, all of the jokes, everything, it lined up with what he said. So his memory is just, I barely remember what I had for lunch yesterday, and he remembers all these very specific, minute details. About a peanut butter and jelly sandwich from 8 years ago.
His brain is one of a kind, and folks here in Indianapolis know that full well. Lindsay, unbelievable job by you guys, and appreciate you joining us and sharing some of that insight.
Thanks so much. Hope to talk to you again later.
That's Lindsay Jones right there from The Athletic on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Copters, Hoodies, and PB&J. The oral history of Peyton Manning's free agency journey is the title on The Athletic. If you've missed it, we come back. There's two anecdotes that Lindsay and I didn't get a chance to touch on that I want to hit on out of that story, and If you have any last comments, questions, KBone1070 on Twitter. We'll be back here. Right at JMV, Kevin Bowen filling in 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
What's next for you in 2020? Well, hit up 1075thefan.com for a chance to win $500 in our What's Next quiz presented by the United States Army.
Response to Diamonds Direct's incredible free finance offer has been amazing. People are driving for hours to take advantage of 5 years zero-interest financing with nothing down. But listen, these are the final days. This aggressive offer ends on June 30th and will not be extended. So don't wait another minute. Get to Diamonds Direct now. Pick any item. Get the unbeatable price Diamonds Direct is known for. Pay nothing down and spread your payments over 5 years without paying a dime in interest. It's the smartest way to buy, and it makes everything more affordable. An $8,000 designer engagement ring is just $134 a month. You can even finance the sales tax. Rings, earrings, pendants, bracelets, bands, colored gemstone jewelry, one-of-a-kind designer pieces. Everything's included. But there's one catch. This is a limited time offer, and it ends Tuesday, June 30th. On approved credit. 5 years, zero interest, nothing down, nothing held back. Exclusively at Diamonds Direct.
We buy any car. We buy any car. We buy any car. Any. We buy any car. Any make, any model, any age, any price from $50 to $100,000. We buy any car. We buy any car. Any. We buy any car. Sell your car the easy way. Go online and sell it today. We buy any car. Any. Find out how much your car's worth at We Buy Any Car.
The sports landscape is ever-changing. Lucky for us, DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, has us covered. This week is full of action from golf to European soccer. Head to the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Check out the special odds and promotions that will be available throughout the week. They're based right here in the USA, not offshore, so you know your funds are safe and secure. You can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. And to top it all off, DraftKings Sportsbook offers their best sign-up offer to date right now. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code WFNI for a limited time. All new users can get a sign-up bonus up to $1,000. That's code WFNI. Get your sign-up bonus up to $1,000 only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You got to be 21 or older, Indiana only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions do apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
Here's what's happening with the Fan.
9th Annual Tom Dockage Memorial Golf Outing, honoring the healthcare heroes of Franciscan Health, is coming up July 13th at Golf Club of Indiana. Register you and your team now. JMV's backyard broadcasts are back, and the Fan is partnered up with Connecticut, New Belgium Fat Tire, and Evan Williams. He'll be broadcasting live from a lucky listener's house this Friday to kick things off. Visit our site for more information on how you can host future broadcasts. For more information, just click on 1075thefan.com.
Hey, these are no ordinary times, and Firehouse Subs is no ordinary sub shop. They're neighborhood restaurants, locally owned and operated, and still open. Enjoy your favorite subs from Firehouse no matter where you're at. Order for pickup on their website or app. Call ahead, order carry out at the restaurant, or get it delivered. Every hot sub is made to order with premium meats and cheeses, box bagged for your convenience. Whether you're taking a break from a conference call or getting ready for mealtime, Firehouse Subs is still here for you. Visit firehousesubs.com to order, pickup, or delivery. Carry out and delivery availability may differ. Dan Dockage here for the Four Winds. My choice for an affordable staycation is Four Winds Lakeside Inn and Marina on beautiful 10,000-acre Lake Monroe. This lakeside inn is located in the Fairfax State Recreation Area, only an hour from Indy, featuring stylish guest rooms, many with incredible views. Enjoy the indoor-outdoor heated pool, fitness center, and private beach. Book a 3-night staycation for only $249. Get the scoop online at fourwindslakeside.com and tell them Dan Dockage sent you.
Hey, it's JMV for Love Heating and Air Conditioning. The hot temperatures are on the way. Make sure you're prepared with a visit from Love Heating and Air Conditioning, and they have your well-being in mind. Following all CDC recommended guidelines, this company has been the best for 100 years. Nobody is better suited for what we're going through now and dealing with your cooling unit than Love Heating and Air Conditioning. John and Chris Love today, 317-353-2141, 317-353-2141, or online, love-hvac.com today.
No matter who's playing, we're talking. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
Nachos, lemon heads, my dad's boat. You won't go down cause my
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Kevin Bowen filling in for JMV. Hope you guys have enjoyed it today. Thanks to Kyle Nenrip, Jay Michael, Mike Chappell, and Lindsey Jones all for hopping on with me. Lindsey was great. Terrific. If you haven't read that Peyton Manning Oral History for Agency, definitely check it out. There were two things that we didn't have a chance to get to, but I said Tennessee was the runner-up, or at least that's the impression that I get in that free agency in 2012. He mentioned that, or Cooper Manning mentioned there was a lot of talk and speculation about Peyton going to Tennessee, but he would be playing the Colts twice a year, and that was a little too close to him. So I thought that was interesting, and then I also feel like, didn't Bill Polian say, I think he was on with Pat McAfee, that they found out that Peyton was done for the year in 2011 before the season even started. Roster cutdown day. Well, if that's the case, why was Peyton selling the roster for the entire season back in 2011. So that story doesn't really add up there. But Premier League, Liverpool, champions. That's the news of the day. Kentucky Derby, fans going to be allowed. I think that's great for the Indy 500. Hopefully that's great. We'll see. Decision probably needs to be made there in a couple of weeks. Again, John tomorrow, Kevin Bowen signing off. Thanks for joining us here, The Ride at JMV.
Hey, it's Rob Belushi from the Bill Estes Ford family in Brownsburg. Brian, are you doing sit-ups in the office?